Unfortunately, at that time, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers mistook their target and went to Mingyu Palace. This caused the Jade Guanyin to gradually lose patience, and she simply fed them each an insect, so they fell into a deep sleep, unable to awake. Sleeping bug. Here the memory breaks. But it was also from the memory that Duan Yun found that there was a secret passage in the underground space of the Jade Guanyin. In Ziyu's memory, after seeing them, the Jade Guanyin often went to a secret passage that seemed quite hidden. There, perhaps, lies the secret of the Jade Guanyin. Wow! Perhaps both the antidote and the cultivation technique are there. Duan Yun hurriedly asked Shin Ying to take him back. The dark underground, flames moving about. It must be said, the fight between Duan Yun and the Jade Guanyin truly turned the world upside down. The exterior galleries collapsed, the nearby fish were all shocked to death. That's just on the surface. Many places in this underground space got distorted. For instance, the two thick wooden beams ahead, now twisted like hemp ropes, not to mention the numerous holes blasted into them by their true chi, appearing as honeycombs, almost triggering trypophobia. Afterward, the lighting up ahead became much brighter. It was that yellow jade again, emitting a dim yellow light, illuminating everything around. The room where Ziyu and Ningqing were imprisoned was reached. Following his memory, Duan Yun walked towards the right side. This place was darker, blacker, and showed no signs of refurbishment. It looked much like a cave naturally formed, which the Jade Guanyin turned into an underground sanctuary, and this area was not renovated. Ordinary people searching up to here would probably think that this sanctuary had come to an end, nothing left to explore. But Duan Yun had that piece of memory, so he continued to walk inwards. Shin Ying and Feng Linger followed behind. At this point, the temperature around them dropped significantly. Duan Yun flicked his fingers and ignited a heroic fire lotus. The moment the flames lit up, they could even clearly see the cold air gushing from one side. Duan Yun followed this cold air and walked over. This was a long stone pathway, surrounded by rugged and odd-shaped stones, along with the rising cold air, always giving one the illusion of heading towards the netherworld hell. At this moment, a door indeed appeared in front of them, a vermilion red gate. This way all along, the scenery before was very primitive, with little difference from wild mountain caves. Yet at this moment, a door appeared out of place. A vermilion red gate. Honestly, this had a terrifying vibe of Chinese ghost lore. The secret of the Jade Guanyin, perhaps, was right here. Duan Yun quickened his pace and headed towards the gate. Creak, creak, creak. The heavy gate was slowly pushed open, revealing a dim yellow light inside. What appeared before them were vast expanses of yellow jade. These yellow jades were shaped like long strips, entwined together like snakes. Such a scene undoubtedly caused one's sanity to slip. These yellow jades seemed alive, as if they really were snakes. The key point is that there were too many. They were entangled closely together, filling the entire space. Shin Ying and Feng Linger felt their scalps tingle. And this place, perhaps, was where the core secret of the Jade Guanyin resided. Duan Yun burned the heroic fire lotus and continued to walk inside. Then he saw person after person sealed within the yellow jade. The yellow jade emitted a chill, and those within the jade appeared handsome. Even if they fell short compared to Duan Yun himself, it was just slightly so. From here, one could even clearly make out their eyebrows, eyelashes. It was certain that these people were dead. But they still preserved the appearance from before death, dressed in luxurious robes, some still holding folding fans, looking elegant and poised. In total, there were 7 individuals. These 7 must have been the many handsome men taken by the Jade Guanyin throughout her life, the ones she favored most. Perhaps out of kindness or fondness for them. She couldn't bear to see them age and their charm fade. So at their best age, she turned them into specimens, placed them in this jade, preserving their eternal youth. This was indeed the most beautiful state remembered. Duan Yun and the 2 with him could even imagine how Jade Guanyin would come here from time to time, watching them with fondness. This is truly bizarre and twisted. Duan Yun even imagined that if he were to be defeated, he might just be the 8th person here. The mad women of this world are way too insane. How could someone like him survive if he didn't wipe them out completely? He was already regretting having burned the jade guanine so rashly. He should have brought the mad woman's corpse out. Let everyone in the martial world see how he made her kneel, scrounge around for teeth, and then personally sent her to hell. At least that would act as a deterrent to similar mad women in the martial world, setting a positive example. He had been careless. Duan Yun took such matters seriously, because he was quite handsome. The first time he roamed the wilderness after entering the martial world, he was almost robbed of his first time by the Red House madwoman. This was a concern that all fine young men of the martial world had to consider. Not like the Murong brothers, who only needed to guard against mad men. At this moment, a bed made of yellow jade appeared in front of them. The entire bed was wrapped by serpentine jade veins. The jade guanine must have often slept in this bed, as they found quite a few things on it. At the head of the bed were the secret books that Duan Yun had in mind, and some bottles and jars. Those bottles and jars likely contained the jade guanine's poison and antidote. Duan Yun relayed the scenes he had seen in his memory to Shening and Fenglinger. Shening said, "The jade guanine fed them insects? What kind of insect?" Duan Yun frowned, recalling, "The size of a fingernail, somewhat yellow." Shening picked up a porcelain bottle but did not open it, because it was very possible it contained poison similar to Baisu Qingfeng, which could cause poisoning upon inhalation. From time to time, she tapped on the porcelain bottle, listening carefully. Finally, she took out a black porcelain bottle and said, "Hold your breath first." The three of them stopped breathing in an instant. Shening opened the porcelain bottle. The next moment, a series of small sounds arose, as if centipedes were crawling on the ground. Sure enough, an insect crawled out of the mouth of the bottle. A multi-legged yellow insect that resembled a maggot with the legs of a centipede. As these sounds began, Ning Qing and Ziyu, who had been in a coma, suddenly furrowed their brows and began to gasp for air. With a retch, both women suddenly vomited, and two yellow insects fell out of their mouths. Ziyu slowly opened her eyes and whispered, "Water." She was given some water to drink slowly, and on the other side, Ning Qing also woke up. Obviously, it was these insects that put them into a coma. Shening circulated her true qi and caught all three insects into the porcelain bottle. "Do you know the cure?" Fenglinger asked, puzzled. To use insects for poisoning is very similar to the gu poison of the Five Immortals sect. Gu insects often have males and females, which are attracted to each other's sounds. Some gu poisons from the Five Immortals sect are resolved this way, explained Shening. At this moment, the experience of an old riverside finally showed a bit of its wisdom. Now that Ning Qing and Ziyu had awakened in a dazed state, although they appeared bemused, it seemed they were no longer in harm's way. Since the poison was cured and they had obtained what they came for, naturally it was time to leave. Duan Yun smoothly and naturally tucked the secret book into his chest and then, one after another, smashed the yellow jade containing the handsome men. After these corpses were released from the yellow jade, their previously well-preserved visages instantly became hollow and aged, losing all luster. Duan Yun kindled a flame and set them alight one by one. These bodies had been trapped here, which was truly pitiful. Thinking that they once had the same handsome and unrestrained appearance as himself, Duan Yun suddenly felt even more sympathetic. If there were souls in this world, they might be able to be reincarnated like this. The roaring flames burned, crackling profusely. Duan Yun searched the place once more and only found about a dozen gold bracelets. There was no other loot. The jade guanine must not have fancied gold and silver treasures. Such items were nearly non-existent. The gold bracelets even had barbs on them. They looked less like jewelry and more like some sort of tools to increase pleasure. Having some is better than none. As a young hero, he had little interest in money. If given the choice, he would rather be an ordinary doctor, practicing martial arts leisurely and living a carefree life. Unfortunately, this world was too rotten. Thus, what interested him the most was still the Jade Guanine's secret book. Duan Yun had already looked at it, and the cover had 6 characters written on it. Yellow, 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 intense skills. Duan Yun and his group returned to the surface. At this point, there were no lights on Yellow Jade Island, making it resemble a dark, silent tomb. What they were about to do was to loot the place before leaving this cursed land. Since Ningqing and Ziyu were unwell, they decided to find a place to rest first, allowing Duan Yun, the doctor, to examine them thoroughly. Electroshock treatment might be more appropriate for recovery after detoxification. Duan Yun, accompanied by 4 women, walked towards the street they had passed earlier on the island. At this time, the mist was pervasive, and the island enveloped in the night seemed to be covered with a layer of light gauze, appearing even more mysteriously deep. Halfway there, Shining suddenly questioned, "Why is there no one around?" What she meant were not actual living people, but the living dead. Previously on Yellow Jade Island, there were many living dead squirming like maggots, but now none were to be seen. Her words indeed reminded Duan Yun and Fenglinger. In their view, the island seemed even more eerily deep. It didn't take long before the group of 5 stopped in their tracks. Because they saw people. Dead people. The previously seen living dead reappeared in their sight. However, they were all dead. They all lay on the ground, facing upwards, with a large hole in their chests, and their hearts missing. These people were lined up in a row, stretching from one end of the street to the other. The living dead hadn't disappeared. They had all died and were lined up here. All died from having their hearts excised. Who did this? During their battle with Jade Guanyin, someone had killed all the living dead here. This method was indeed cruel and horrifying. Without exception, the living dead all lost their hearts, as if there was an evil demon lurking here, craving human hearts. Jade Guanyin had already died, and Duan Yun and his group should have had nothing to fear here. Yet at this moment, even Duan Yun felt a chill down his spine. Was there another master? This long row of heartless corpses, neatly arranged, to the eyes of Duan Yun and others, resembled an evil ritual in progress, which was especially chilling. "Burn them," Duan Yun said. Whether the living dead counted as human beings, he hadn't had the chance to confirm. But these people had lived pitiful lives. Originally like him, unusually handsome men, they were captured by Jade Guanyin, violated, and then turned into walking corpses of the living dead. Even in death, the living dead's demise was tragic, with their hearts gouged out. Duan Yun and the others began to gather these corpses together, intending to burn them all. The more they moved the bodies, the more terrified they became. There were at least 200 corpses. Someone had, in such a short time, excised the hearts of 200 people and managed to lay them out so neatly. That person's martial arts skills must be profound, and even though they were aware of them, he seemed unhurried. At that moment, Shining suddenly said, "There's writing under their feet." Duan Yun quickly checked and indeed saw that there were words under the feet of some corpses. "Young hero, please accept. Young hero, please accept." All these corpses had only 5 characters: "Young hero" on the left foot, "Please accept" on the right foot. Fenglinger said, "Is this meant as a gift for us?" By now, they could be sure that someone had done this deliberately, intending for them to see it. "I didn't say to kill, yet he killed. Is this supposed to be a gift?" Duan Yun said with a grim expression. Yes, these living dead, he had previously still been contemplating how to deal with. He had wanted to try healing them. But now there was no need to try. Someone had killed the group of living dead, which seemed to have saved him the trouble. However, Duan Yun was not pleased. Not pleased at all. No one could make choices for this young hero, especially not this sort of ruthless and vile nemesis. Rather than a gift, it was more like a provocation. This person was truly mysterious and terrifying, clearly aware that they had killed Jade Guanyin, yet still daring to act this way, showing no fear of them. Shining and the other women even felt uneasy, because they had just gone through a fierce battle and were all in a poor state. If a strong enemy were to appear at this moment, it would likely be very troublesome. After igniting the corpses, Duan Yun said, "Let's go." Now that the enemy remained hidden while they were exposed, and potentially other masters lurking, This place was indeed no longer safe to stay. At the break of dawn, Duan Yun and his group retraced their way back. Jade Guanyin had clearly been killed by them, yet this island in the desert, still shrouded in a layer of mist, remained obscure. Fortunately, the people were saved. The secret book was seized. This trip had been fraught with danger but ended safely. At least Ning Qing and Ziyu were unharmed, which was the best outcome. This martial world really needed a thorough cleaning. It was far too dangerous. This time it was Jade Guanyin. Would there be a stone Guanyin next time? As Duan Yun walked, he flipped through his booklet, looking very concerned about the state of affairs. After Duan Yun and his group left, the water-abundant yellow jade island fell into dead silence. As if with the arrival of this old demon, this scenically beautiful region lost all its vitality. The fish killed by the shock remained floating in the water, uncleaned. But the dead fish were gradually disappearing. The lake was quite extensive, and where there were dead fish, there were live fish. Live fish eating dead fish was only natural. This was the 7th day after Jade Guanyin's death, also marking the 7th day since her demise. Although the island had been silent, suddenly there arose a song. The song was ethereal and mournful, as if wrongfully deceased souls were lamenting in despair. Could it truly be Jade Guanyin's spirit returning? Below the collapsed pavilion, 7 candles were lit. Through the light of the fire, one could faintly see that the 7 candles were held in someone's palms. Originally uninhabited, the island now hosted 7 people. 7 women, each holding a candle, dressed in red, sang mournfully there. The soul of the mistress has departed. Her voice and appearance wander. The red rope is gone, yet her elegance remains like a shadow. As a concubine says, life is like supporting a willow, swaying lightly with the wind. By this point, the 7 women had started singing together. Their voices moved from pouring out to gradually becoming serene, as if they had comprehended the true essence of life. The singing stopped, and the 7 women put down their candles. An older woman said, "Fortunately, 7th sister was alert, manipulating the living dead to dig out their hearts and die, obscuring old demon Duan's view and making them retreat." Another woman sighed lightly and said, "This old demon is truly wicked. The master only wanted to seduce him, yet he ruthlessly killed her and even burned her body. Without 7th sister's method, we would probably have been discovered." At this moment, the woman in the center nodded and said, "Master's revenge must be sought. As the eldest sister, I wish to inherit Master's mantle and restore the glory of Yellow Jade Island." A younger woman responded, "Eldest sister, inheriting Master's mantle is a matter of fate. We all share this fate with the Master." The eldest sister showed displeasure and said, "Xiaowu, what exactly are you trying to say?" Another woman quickly interjected, "Today marks the 7th day since Master's death. It is not appropriate to discuss this matter now." Afterwards, the 7 fell silent again and began to sing high. As a concubine says, life is like supporting a willow, swaying lightly with the wind. They sang with great movement, yet peacefully, as if they had comprehended the true essence of life. "See, I told you they weren't all killed." Suddenly, a man's voice rang out, abruptly stopping the singing of the 7 women. A dim cave entrance, a person walked in. A man with a handsome face. Duan Yun stepped in, lamenting, "I've waited 7 days and finally, the time has come for you all to depart." Seeing the silhouette of Duan Yun, the eldest sister couldn't help her voice tremble and said, "Duan, old demon Duan." With this remark, the remaining 6 also turned pale, with 2 of them even dropping their candles. Wasn't this madman gone? Why has he come back? "Sisters, he is alone. Form the formation." The eldest sister suddenly shouted. The 7 women quickly reacted, forming a formation similar to the Big Dipper. "Sisters, kill." Following the eldest sister's command, the Big Dipper formation moved. However, the stars of the formation were not united. Only 3 stars charged forward, while the remaining 4 retreated in all 4 directions. Among them, the eldest sister retreated the fastest. "What are you running for?" A body-breaking sword pillar burst forth at high speed, leaving a wind tunnel in the air. The fastest retreating eldest sister had her head penetrated. Breaking body sword energy. Damn! The next moment, Duan Yun was surrounded by black sword chi. Like a black sword man, his figure swift as wind. 4 disciples of Jade Guanyin were killed in an instant. The remaining 3 seized the opportunity to flee, but behind them, Duan Yun, though alone, gave the illusion of being able to multiply. As he had just killed the 3rd sister in the east, he could immediately appear behind someone in the west and chase wildly. Stop! Young hero is here to kill you. Surrender and you will not be killed. As if. This twisted underground chamber seemed momentarily filled with only the echoing voice of old demon Duan, utterly terrifying. The 6th sister ran the smoothest because she was rather short, and old demon Duan did not chase her for a moment. Thus, she kept praying that old demon Duan would go after her fellow disciples. Not her. She crawled up to the surface through a crevice. She wanted to get back to her secret room, which was hard to find and also connected to the outside. As long as she escaped to Devil City, she would be safe. But just as she reached the surface, she saw 4 pairs of eyes looking at her. 4 pairs of beautiful eyes, sparkling with brightness. Female heroes, acting for heaven. We must kill her entire family, eradicate all of them. Initially, the silent yellow jade island suddenly became bustling, resembling the lively atmosphere of the new year. 7 people, 7 corpses neatly arranged there. Shining looked at this scene and exclaimed, "Now everyone is here." Ning Qing looked at Duan Yun and said, "How did you know people would come back here? Are you a genius?" Duan Yun responded, "To eliminate demons completely, one must have patience." Who could have thought, just as they seemed to have left Yellow Jade Island, Duan Yun and his group quietly turned back halfway, patiently hiding on the island for 7 days, and only came out to clean up the people after hearing singing on the 7th day since Jade Guanin's death. At this point, even if Jade Guanin still had scattered disciples elsewhere, they could no longer pose a threat. They also learned how those living dead had died by having their hearts gouged out. It wasn't the work of a highly skilled and ruthless expert who took their hearts out in a short time, but rather they were manipulated by female disciples of Yellow Jade Island to commit suicide. There are many living dead both inside and outside of Yellow Jade Island. It would be impossible for Jade Guanin to manage them all alone. She needed these disciples to help operate things. So, their ability to manipulate the living dead to commit suicide is logical. At this moment, Duan Yun and his companions felt a refreshing clarity. Without thoroughly eradicating them, how can one become a hero? The first time Yuju and the heroes left, they didn't take a cloud with them, but this time when they left, they carried big and small packages. Jade Guanin wasn't fond of riches, but treasures were hidden on the island, especially these disciples of Jade Guanin. Some loved to dress up and hid plenty of gold and silver jewelry. This wealth was enough for them to return flamboyantly and to donate some gold as well. The nameless young hero liked to donate gold. No one could stop him from donating gold to save people. The 7 female disciples' corpses were quickly consumed by fire completely. At this point, Yellow Jade Island could be said to be thoroughly clean. This was the first time Ning Qing and Ziyu had joined Duan Yun and others in acting for heaven, and they found it somewhat intoxicating. You see, before they thought this sort of thing was nonsense. Especially Ziyu, who had written quite a few idle books, with many heroes in her stories experiencing tragedies. For example, a hero has to let his best friend have the woman he loves, which leads to hatred born from love and many other stories. But following old demon Duan in performing righteous deeds felt different. She and Ning Qing were inexplicably brought to Yellow Jade Island, thinking they were doomed. After all, this is Yellow Jade Island, one of the most mysterious and dangerous islands in the martial arts world, and they were captured by Jade Guanin. They had already given up struggling, remaining numb even when fed to insects, but now you're telling me not only were they rescued, they even managed to fight back. Yes, they had no chance to participate in killing Madwoman Jade Guanin, but they did participate in killing her disciples and eradicating her sect. Thinking over this process, Ziyu and Ning Qing couldn't help but hum lightly. It must be said, old Demon Duan indeed has a magical charm that makes it easy to get addicted to performing acts of justice. After leaving Yellow Jade Island, they had to go through a tough trek to cross the desert. But now everyone did not feel it to be hard. Even when Feng Linger once again acted out of sorts and nearly lost the way, no one complained. When they returned to Wuya City, soaking in the warm bath water in the inn, Duan Yun and others felt as though they had experienced another lifetime. They had been busy for about 20 days, less than a month, but it felt longer than a year. Honestly, they moved quickly, having gone to kill Jade Guanyin on the very night they arrived at the island. But the peculiar occurrences in the desert, the flying snakes that turned into rain, the miraculous Devil City, the Jiangnan waterscape in the desert, and the mysterious and weird yellow jade, there were truly novel experiences. Some masters who had been famous for a long time might never have such experiences in their lifetime. Only when the steaming bath water gradually cooled down did Duan Yun step out of the tub. Wuya City isn't short of water, but after the trek through the desert, Duan Yun began to cherish water more. Water is indeed the source of life. Even he, a high master, could deeply feel the discomfort and pain of not having water. Now that it was night, comfortably bathed, young hero Duan didn't rest. He still had things to do. The name of Wuya City's city lord was still on his notebook. He needed to hurry and eliminate him. At night, Wuya City Lord, Chun Bukai, was lounging on the most comfortable and softest fox fur chair, savoring fine wine. Crescent Bay's most thriving wine business was actually all his. What brought Chun Bukai some annoyance was that ever since encountering Jade Guanyin, his monopoly had to be split 7-3. The worst part was 70% went to Jade Guanyin. However, Chun Bukai gradually got used to this arrangement, as there's a common saying, beggars can't be choosers. Though he was also a fighter nearing the level of a grandmaster, there are still hierarchies among grandmasters. Confronted with Jade Guanyin, the #1 beauty in the human world, if she were to take a seat, he would probably not be able to withstand her. What made Chun Bukai even more irritated was that to submit to Wanyu Guanyin was to submit. It's not embarrassing to be unable to fight back, but he hasn't reaped any benefits till now. In fact, Jade Guanyin's beauty truly captivated him. He desired to be violated by her. But this bitch, who had slept with countless men, probably despised his looks and refused this favor. She wouldn't violate him. There was nothing more unbearable than this. Hence, City Lord Chin Bukai had been quite on edge recently, on multiple levels. Thus, at this moment there were two people at his feet. Two delicate girls were kneeling there, licking his feet. Only when both feet were licked spotlessly clean, after the girl's mouth seemed nearly dislocated, did he kick the girl on the left away with one foot, waving his hand for her to withdraw. That girl's teeth were shattered and one side of her face grotesquely swelled, but she dared not utter a word. He waved his hand again, signaling for the other girl to come over. She came over and he kicked out once more. This time, both sides of the girl's face swelled up before he finally appeared satisfied and told her to retreat. This was the simple, unadorned life of the city lord. Only then did Chin Bukai make his way inside the room. The whole house was spotless, free of any dust. He loved cleanliness, especially the indescribable joy he felt when his spotless feet walked across a dust-free floor, making him involuntarily hum in delight. In the room, everything was not only clean as new but also symmetrical. If there was a chair on the left, there had to be an identical one on the right, and if there was a phoenix carved on the window on the left, the right could not be a dragon but must be identical. Should you examine carefully, even his hair was evenly split down the middle, looking utterly perfect. Chun Bukai felt weary, and he lay precisely on the symmetrical bed. Yes, his spine fitted perfectly into the crease in the center of the bed, and whenever he lay there, aligning perfectly, he once again felt a deep sense of order. Chun Bukai had drunk some wine and was just about to sleep soundly. But then he heard a crack, the noise of wood being broken by something. As someone at the threshold of becoming a grandmaster, Chun Bukai instinctively sensed danger, flipping through the air and changing into at least 18 different positions. Then, he was struck 23 times by violent finger strength. An awful sensation of uncleanness penetrated his mind so that by the time he hit the floor, he had become a squirting soldier, urinating uncontrollably. During the most horrific flow, his own urine even swirled around and splattered on his own face. Chun Bukai, a cleanliness fanatic, was about to go mad. Indeed, his first concern was not that he was injured, but that he had urinated. "Who is it?" exclaimed Chun Bukai, spitting out blood. Duan Yun crawled out from under the bed, still in a lying position, calm and composed. This was a movement technique learned from Morong brothers. But while the Morong brothers moved like maggots, he moved like a fish. Watching the intruder's composed demeanor, Chun Bukai realized that his injuries were more severe than he had anticipated. The quivering impact of the finger strength not only made his bladder tremble, continuing to leak, it also vibrated through his organs. Could be said that he had sustained internal injuries. If he considered himself a half-step grandmaster, then this person in front of him must be a grandmaster, and not just an ordinary one. Hence, Chun Bukai swiftly spoke, "Hero, I don't know where I offended you, but I am under Jade Guanin's banner. Please show some leniency." Indeed, he would probably remember the humiliation of urinary incontinence for life and would inevitably seek revenge later to take the life of this man. But at this moment, Chun Bukai still gave in. Jade Guanin's reputation in the area was that of mystery and invincibility. Duan Yun sneered and said, "Jade Guanin? Haha, she's dead." Shocked, Chun Bukai instinctively asked, "How did she die?" "She was killed by me," answered Duan Yun. "Impossible." Looking at the coming figure's handsome face, Chun Bukai snapped to his senses and said, You are Mr. Duan, the hero." "Hero, giant hero. I have no close association with Jade Guanin. She was wicked and forced me." Before this, Chun Bukai had received instructions from Jade Guanin to be on the lookout within his domain for Old Demon Duan's traces, as she planned to violate Old Demon Duan. He had been angry at the time, as Jade Guanin wanted to violate even the old demon but not him. Is being ugly a sin? In the past month, one of his men mentioned a suspicious figure, but he hadn't taken it seriously. Was he aware that Old Demon Duan was coming, wanting to violate him, making him envious as a consequence? But who could have imagined that Old Demon Duan would actually come and that he had killed Jade Guanin? How could it be? In his mind, Jade Guanin was invincible, a god of the desert. At this moment, Duan Yun shook his head and said, "Too late to change your story. You were destined to die." Chen Bukai, seeing Duan Yun's resolute eyes, knew that there was likely no escape. Old Demon Duan was petty and vengeful. Those marked by him were as good as listed in the Yama book. Even those residing in the Black Gobi had heard of it. This kind of person had no respect for law or courtesy, no sense of propriety, and wouldn't even regard the dog owner when beating a dog. Not to mention the renown of Jade Guanin couldn't save him. What he detested most in his life were such people and those who were unclean and stupid. And this guy made him pee everywhere, simply embodying all he despised in one. Chun Bukai couldn't help but grit his teeth and said, "Young hero Duan, I'm somewhat strong and powerful myself, and I'm relieved you're willing to cease hostilities. If you really insist on breaking the rules, every man has his breaking point." Duan Yun stood up, his face serious as he said, "Well said." Chun Bukai thought there was hope. After all, even the old demon would fear a desperado. No one wishes for death. But Duan Yun's next sentence was, "I will make sure to beat you to death." Ah! Seeing Duan Yun about to make a move, Chun Bukai took the initiative to strike first. His arms' muscles surged, with sinews winding around like tree roots. People only knew of his obsession with cleanliness, not that he had trained his ghost meat skills to perfection, turning into a true ghost meat man. Duan Yun saw his fists shooting out like cannonballs, unleashing 16 strange fists with a boom. With a loud bang, the ground trembled, and chairs nearby were overturned by the overflowing fist power. You have to admit, Chun Bukai's claim of being a half-step grandmaster was far from boasting. In the blink of an eye, they exchanged 7 or 8 punches. If Chun Bukai's first punch was like tree roots wrapping around his arms, By this point, one could say his whole body resembled tree roots. At this moment, every muscle of his body was merged into the strength of his fists. One could say his whole being had turned into a chunk of muscle used for punching. Duan Yun marveled, acknowledging the boy's fists were extraordinary tyrannical, and even with his full strength in 16 strange fist, he couldn't suppress him easily. Chan Bukai, after successive build-ups, had his muscles tensed to the limit, ready to unleash the most ferocious punch of his life. Heavenly Annihilation Ghost Meat Fist. Duan Yun also felt his fist intent rise and muscles surge as he linked together the 15 strange fists. But the next moment, Chun Bukai suddenly cried out, "I want to become a hero," spewing a mouthful of blood, and collapsed backward. Yes, he fell before his punch was even thrown. Duan Yun was eager to catch the punch, but was left in limbo and couldn't help but complain, "What are you doing? Where's the punch?" Chun Bukai retched a series of fresh blood. This Heavenly Annihilation Ghost Meat Fist required accumulating strength and breath-holding techniques to their extreme. Not only muscles and joints had to be fully tensed to store energy, but also a long breath had to be held. His sudden outcry clearly broke this requirement. Consequently, his technique backfired. The rebounding fist power surged into his body, exploding within his entrails. One must know, Chun Bukai had already been internally injured by Duan Yun's finger strength, and the deployment of such a destructive ghost meat fist further magnified the damage, fully igniting his injuries, severing even his heart vessels. He was doomed. Doomed. In his final moments, Chun Bukai struggled to his feet, righted the chair that was knocked over by the fist power in front of Duan Yun, laid it out neatly in the middle of the room, and with all his might, wiped the urine beneath him dry, then parted his messy hair down the middle. This way he could depart properly. At least he could leave somewhat peacefully. But the very next instant, Chun Bukai's pupils shrank in madness. For at that moment, with a thud, Duan Yun kicked the precisely positioned chair over, breaking a leg off it. Then came another finger strength strike, and the area he thought was free of urine immediately gushed again, washing away the neatly combed middle part. City Lord Chin Bukai departed just the same. But judging by his hideous expression, he did not die peacefully. While dying, he was wiping his groin with one hand, and his hair with the other, regretfully unable to finish. This city lord, who loved cleanliness and would kill or violate over a fallen leaf, died in filth, even very dirty. His unrelenting gaze seemed to express that even in death, if he became a vengeful ghost, he would not spare Duan Yun. But does young hero Duan care? Those who wish to become ghosts and claim young hero Duan's life after death, there are not 1,000 here. There must be hundreds. They'd have to queue. After Chun Bukai's death, the room once again fell silent. Duan Yun waved his hand, opening the window for ventilation. After that, he took a seat on the luxurious foxfur chair where Chun Bukai had sat. You have to say, this chair wasn't bad, very comfortable to sit in, just suitable for him to study cultivation techniques. What he held in his hand just so happened to be Yellow Intense Skills of Jade Guanyin. This book, said to be a secret book, could also barely qualify as the Diary of Jade Guanyin, because it contained a great deal of Jade Guanyin's personal insights. It was due to her mother that Jade Guanyin found Yellow Jade Island. According to this secret book, her mother was originally from Xinzhou, known for her beauty, then for some reason went to Fusang. She grew up in Fusang, and her father happened to be a famous martial artist there. But after being abandoned by her mother, he lived in melancholy and soon after passed away. When she sorted through his belongings, she discovered a box left by her mother. Inside the box was a map related to Yellow Jade Island, claiming it hid peerless martial arts, which, once mastered, would allow one to dominate the world. After the death of Jade Guanyin's father, life was dire. With her beauty, she was to be sent to entertain guests. Although she would have inherited her mother's traits, being naturally flirtatious, she from childhood preferred handsome men, not ugly ones. In martial world, life isn't always under one's control, and one can hardly choose their patrons. Thus, Jade Guanyin steeled her resolve and secretly traveled to Xinzhou from Fusang. could be viewed as an inspirational story. Jade Guanyin braved the mountains and rivers, survived numerous perils, and finally arrived at Yellow Jade Island. In the depths of Yellow Jade Island, she found the Divine Skills Secret Manual, Yellow, 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 Yellow Intent Skills. However, the secret book was incomplete at that time. It must be said, Jade Guanyin also showed exceptional talent, as she gradually deduced the complete form of the cultivation technique. The book that Duan Yun holds is the complete version deduced by Jade Guanyin. According to the description, the yellow, 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 yellow intent skills are closely related to the island's yellow jade. One must fully integrate with the yellow jade to cultivate. After years of practice, Jade Guanyin discovered that the yellow jade seemed to have life, seemingly some magical blood water, and what she needed to do was absorb this life and condense it into a crystal. Gradually, she truly achieved great mastery of the divine skill, and her innate frivolousness grew even more so. Thus came Jade Guanyin's incidents of unabashedly capturing handsome men. From the description, Duan Yun felt that the yellow jade might be a type of radioactive stone. As Jade Guanyin cultivated within it and absorbed the radiation from the yellow jade over a long period, she perceived the yellow jade as living, which in turn caused changes in her body. These changes led her to acquire extraordinary powers and also caused diseases in people, turning them into her living dead and Guanyin followers. Yellow jade disease? That's how Duan Yun summarized it, feeling somewhat reminiscent of a type of or sickness from past life apocalypse games. Fortunately, Jade Guanyin only captured men herself, and only those well-known handsome ones. If she had been like the mad woman in Red House, spreading disciples everywhere, capturing people everywhere, the contagiousness of this disease could spread 1 to 10, 10 to 100. This world might truly become a terrifying world filled with living dead. Who knows, maybe one day Jade Guanyin changes her preference, capturing anyone and letting her living dead make chaos everywhere, meaning young hero Duan indirectly saved the world. Under such circumstances, Duan Yun naturally wouldn't cultivate within the yellow jade, but he found that there were indeed things worth studying within the yellow, 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 yellow jade skill. That is the burst, the secret technique of Jade Guanyin's clothes bursting. At this moment, Duan Yun couldn't help but doubt the identity of Jade Guanyin. Jade Guanyin was a rare beauty, and so was her mother, who was as flirtatious as her. Her mother was originally from Xinzhou but later went to Fusang. Wait, could Jade Guanyin's mother be Lin Yusin, the once #1 beauty of the world, accessible even to beggars? And Jade Guanyin also proclaimed herself as the #1 beauty of the world. Thinking this, it really seemed possible. My goodness, do the top beauties of mother and daughter play so wildly? At this moment, suddenly a weird scream came from outside. A young girl who had just been licking feet came to the door, frightened and fell to the ground. Every night at this time, she would come here because the city lord might need to urinate, requiring her to clean up. Her instinct was to flee, but Duan Yun already spoke. Stop! The girl froze as if shocked. The city lord is dead. Who else is here resembling such evil? Duan Yun asked. Ah? The girl stood there, her face fearful and trembling. Don't be afraid. My name is Duan Yun, go and ask around, a famous young hero. I am here to act for heaven, to cleanly slay the wicked. Can you write? It is best to write a list, or take me to them now and also describe their evil deeds. Yes, tonight the work of the young hero is far from over. The young hero is very busy. The young girl named Yi, her life was full of disappointments. She was naturally beautiful and thought of marrying into a good family when she grew up, to live a better life. Knowing the dangers of the world, she intentionally disguised herself as ugly to avoid being violated. But that day, City Lord Chen Buxing, displeased by the dirt on her face, forcibly had someone wash it off for her. The wash was excruciatingly painful, even washing off the moles on her face. But as ill fate would have it, because of her cleansed face, she caught the city lord's eye. What kind of person the city lord of Wuya City was, everyone in the city knew. It was no longer just about disregarding health to violate. He was a pervert who would treat women like urinals and rags. And she sniffle. Thinking of this, Yi saw the city lord's corpse and felt a burst of satisfaction. She was never one to pick a fair fight, often sneakily clipping the hair of other little girls in a scuffle. So now, seeing a chance to retaliate against those malicious in the city lord mansion, she hurriedly began writing. Her penmanship wasn't good, but she wrote quickly, listing all the wicked deeds one by one. From top to bottom, the city lord mansion was filled with beast-hearted perverts. She considered herself lucky, only having to deal with the city lord, while some women, and even good-looking men, had it much worse, reduced to common use. Watching Yi write so earnestly and with such righteous fervor, Duan Yun did not disturb her but continued studying the secret book of Jade Guanyin. By this point, the descriptions of cultivation techniques in the yellow intense skills had ended, with the remainder being nothing but Jade Guanyin's immoral tales, as vulgar as lewd fiction. To further understand the evil demons of this world, young hero Duan could only continue his critique. To his surprise, Jade Guanyin actually had children. Those few men sealed by her, she called them husbands. According to her, a child's father should forever remain handsome, unchanging. Duan Yun was once more grateful that he had not physically confronted the evil demon. This mad woman was not just a biological mother but also a polyandrous wife, truly his aversion. As for the descendants of Jade Guanyin, there was hardly any mention. Could it be one of those 7 disciples? Of course, people were dead now, and Duan Yun didn't really care. By now, Yi looked utterly drained, saying, "Young hero, that's all for now." Duan Yun took it and looked. Good grief, the words were packed densely, the pages barely containing them all. "Do you dare to lead the way?" Duan Yun asked. He hesitated, then said, "I dare." After that, the two left the city lord's room one after the other. The city lord mansion at night had few screams. Duan Yun was even more skilled than when he first exterminated the Xuanqiong gang. If previously he could single out one by one, now he could even gather people abruptly and deal with them collectively. In the eyes of others, this behavior was nothing short of a living Yama. It was not until dawn's early light that Duan Yun left. Overnight, out of the 500 people in the vast city lord mansion, only a little over 100 remained. The reason being that these 100 were the humiliated women. Originally, Yi's list only had about 100 names, but due to the enlarged group of victims, the list quickly expanded to nearly 400. It's fair to say that the city lord mansion was rotten to the core. Every time the city lord violated someone regardless of health, or inspected the city's cleanliness, it was a wild revel for his wolfish subordinates. Women the city lord used only once, he would bestow upon them. When the city lord paid no mind to the cleanliness of Wuya City, they would spontaneously patrol the streets, and grabbing any leaf offenders led to another spree of debauchery. Therefore, after young hero Duan arrived, their bodies lay there, some riddled with holes, others with heads in ponds, backsides on trees. In short, what was once an extremely clean city lord mansion was now flowing with rivers of blood. The stench could be smelled streets away by the neighbors. As Duan Yun left, the group of victims cried out, calling him young hero, while also looting the place and setting it ablaze. When the fire broke out, the nearby residents had already prepared their buckets, ready to put out the fire. Because the city lord had said, the daughters of the city's residents are his daughters, and his mansion is everyone's home, to be cared for dearly beside the normal prohibition of entry. But as the people waited, no call for help came. Without a summons from the city lord's guards, they dared not approach. Later, some residents who were particularly concerned about the city lord, even treating him as if their own father, bravely rushed in regardless of the danger, only to be frightened back out by the corpses inside. The fire didn't go out until noon, because the city lord required the roads to be wide, not liking to see residents. So the blaze did not spread elsewhere, smoldering within the mansion. Shining and the other women, like everyone else in the city, excitedly watched the whole event unfold. It's not every day one gets to see a fire. Truly gratifying. By lunchtime, the city was abuzz discussing the matter. The city lord was the sky of Wuya City, and now his house had burned without him saying a word. It is known that quite a few conscientious residents had already prepared money to fund the city lord's reconstruction. When the mansion was initially built, the city lord had asked for donations. Some even suspected that the city lord wanted a new residence and thus deliberately set the fire. Subsequently, suddenly, someone said the city lord was actually dead, slain by a hero named Nameless Young Hero. At first, when this claim surfaced, some cursed, calling such words treasonous and suicidal, even wanting to fight those spreading the rumors. The city lord couldn't possibly be dead. However, not long after this rumor started circulating, a corpse suddenly appeared at the city gates. The body was hung at the city gate, hair disheveled and pants split open, clearly not in a clean state. Yet, someone still recognized that it was indeed the city lord Chinbukai. The city lord is truly dead. Ah, our father is indeed dead. Some citizens, who had always taken pride in the city lord, wailed and beat their chests in despair. But they immediately clammed up, their faces showing a panicky fear, because this might attract the killer of the city lord, the nameless young hero from the rumors. With the death of the city lord, those who grieved were in the minority. These few either were wine merchants who profited from the city lord's favors, or they were truly brainwashed, their chests puffing up with pride at the thought of the city lord's might and tyranny. Most of these people were local ruffians who enjoyed brawling. Surely there weren't many happy citizens either. Years of rules had accustomed them to the fact that leaves falling by their doors could lead to murder. Most of the citizens were confused. The city lord is dead. Do we still sweep the leaves? Sweep? Do you dare not to? But the city lord was killed by that young hero. Wouldn't we anger the young hero if we sweep? In no time, the terrifying reputation of the nameless young hero loomed over Wuya City. And one person wept his heart out. Fan Gao lay on the ground, crying like an 800-pound child. He didn't hold any hope for Duan Yun and his party, because in his heart, Jade Guanyin was an unbeatable demon, a god, and because Duan Yun got lost on his way and had spent a whole head 7, a traditional Chinese mourning ritual on Yellow Jade Island, exterminating ruthlessly, a considerable amount of time was delayed. Therefore, Fan Gao thought that Duan Yun was finished. Perhaps he had been violated by Jade Guanyin dozens of times, forced into hundreds of positions. So he chose to lie flat, because he knew that choosing the wrong side meant death. It wouldn't take long for Jade Guanyin to send someone to clean him up. He hasn't come for so long. Maybe because he's just a small fry, not worth their attention. Maybe this could save his life. What then? Continue to live like a worm? Fan Gao was in agony. If he hadn't met Duan Yun, he wouldn't have been in such pain because he had resigned himself to being an abandoned worm. But Duan Yun came, told him about justice, and urged him to be a demon slayer to challenge the invincible Jade Guanyin. Honestly, recalling now, Fan Gao still sees Duan Yun as a shining figure. That light seemed to tear through endless darkness, bringing a sliver of hope to his abysmally miserable life. Hope that dazzled so much that he couldn't stop thinking about it. What a pity. It was but a foolish and vain fantasy after all. How could there be any justice in this world? How could Jade Guanyin possibly be defeated? Just as he was disheartened, wanting to forget that ray of light like a worm, the City Lord Mansion suddenly burst into flames. The City Lord Mansion was on fire, the City Lord was killed, and the murderer was a hero known as the Nameless Young Hero. Each piece of news struck him like a thunderclap. Young hero Duan was still alive. Duan Yun wasn't dead. Whether Jade Guanyin was taken care of or not, he didn't know. But the City Lord, a pawn of Jade Guanyin, was done for, hanging there at the city gate. And so he cried unrestrainedly. Have you finished crying? Once you're done, it's time to hit the road, seeking justice. We have a journey ahead. Fan Gao suddenly sat up and then saw that ray of light. Duan Yun stood there, saying contently, Young hero Duan, you're really okay? Where's Jade Guanyin? Of course dead. Ha! Are you doubting my credibility, young hero? Right, do you have a list of villains around here? I'm in a hurry and need to expedite things. Ha! Duan Yun left Wuya City, only taking half a cart of gold and silver jewelry looted from Yellow Jade Island, along with half a cart of local specialty grapes and fine wines. After all, if he didn't bring back some local specialties, the Murong brothers would probably nag non-stop. He came with 1 carriage, but returned with 3. Came with a bit of agitation, but returned utterly relaxed and comfortable. Those who needed saving were saved, and those who deserved death were dealt with. His burden felt lighter. However, Duan Yun was somewhat puzzled. After reviewing the criminal profile of Jade Guanyin, he only knew that she had given birth to children but had no idea how many. Could it be that some of those 7 disciples are daughters of Jade Guanyin? What if Jade Guanyin had sons? Surely not. While Duan Yun was pondering these things, in the depths beneath the bed of yellow jade at the gathering place on Yellow Jade Island, several shadows flickered within the jade. If you looked closely, you would see that these shadows resembled children. They huddled within the soft jade, much like fetuses in amniotic fluid. Their bodies were wrapped in red threads, hanging in a row like gourds strung on a vine. Suddenly, the largest gourd began to shake violently and screamed in the yellow jade, "Mommy!" In Mo Tower at the bottom layer of Wangchun City, a pool of medicine emitting a greenish hue contained numerous round objects. These objects are common. Every man has them, but they are not often seen. They are men's testicles. Densely packed, there were more than 100 of them soaking in the medicine pool. A man in a black robe undressed, revealing his yellow skin. He stood there and said to the person next to him, "It's about time, let's begin. Brother Li, will this really work?" The person dressed in white voiced some difficulty. "Just do as you're told. It's not like we're using your body." A man's genital is essentially the strongest muscle in the body, able to contract and relax, soft and hard at will. It's marvelous, all because of these testicles. I've mastered the trick. As long as I hide the testicles in my body's muscles and combine it with medicine baths and cultivation techniques, all my muscles will become as wondrous as the genital flesh. When I wield the Mo flying thunder god with this divine body, who dares to challenge me? The man in the black robe said excitedly. "Understood, brother." The person in white no longer protested, and one by one, took out red needles and injected them into the man in the black robe's muscles. These red needles were coated with red flower divine medicine, rumored to be refined from the world's most beautiful flowers, inducing extreme pleasure and making one forget pain. For example, Brother Li, despite being covered in needles, seemed to revel in it, unable to suppress his moans. As the second elder of Mo sect and a once-in-a-million Mo sect genius and cultivation prodigy, Li Mafei aspired to soar to new heights. The next moment, the man in white began to drill holes into his flesh. Even though the red needle divine medicine alleviated the pain, it was clear that Li Mafei's face was showing signs of agony. The man in white worked quickly, and in the blink of an eye, more than 10 bloody holes were created. The man in white then swiftly retrieved the testicles with his right hand covered in deerskin gloves from the medicine pool, stuffing them one by one into the bloody holes of the man in the black robe, with great precision. The next moment, Li Mafei's brow furrowed slightly as he began a cycle of 9 shallow and 1 deep breathing exercises. With his breathing, the muscles with holes began to pulsate. It seemed as if the holes in his flesh were mouths, swallowing the testicles one by one. An hour later, the man in white lay exhausted on the ground. Exhausting work, not for just anyone. Brother Li looked at him and smilingly said, "Good brother, I feel fantastic. Once I perfect the technique, you'll have a go too." The man in white pondered, "We'll see about that." Whether Brother Li could advance the Mo flying thunder god to become a divine skill was uncertain, but at least now, he surely must be the man with the most testicles in the world. Without equal. In the dimly lit underground chamber, Li Mafei, covered in testicles, began to operate his technique, as the air currents around him whirled wildly in tandem with his actions. For a moment, he was like a demigod. What is called talent, this is talent. Divine skills are not just cultivated. It also requires a massive intake of wisdom, a synergy of supplementing and cultivating to be invincible. Rumors say old demon Duan has extraordinary wisdom. What does he know? Mine are the real deal. Overcast skies, a carriage, flashes of lightning. Fan Gao's entire face was also flickering with the light, as if he was on the set of a horror film. Ah! As he cried out, the crackling lightning disappeared. Duan Yun withdrew his hand. Gasping for air, Fan Gao said, "Young hero Duan, I feel much better now." Duan Yun nodded and responded, "The poison in you should be nearly cleared. Just rest and recover from here on." Earlier, they had found numerous antidote vials in Jade Guanin's secret chamber. The poison afflicting Fan Gao was clearly of a cold nature, and among those vials, there was one with a fiery medicinal herb. While Duan Yun protected his heart meridian with true qi, Fan Gao took the medicine, and after 3 days of relentless purging, the poison was neutralized. However, the poison had lingered in his body for so long that it had caused considerable damage to his organs. Duan Yun was now using electrotherapy to resuscitate him. It was also a way for him to practice. Now, his medical skills, excluding gynecology, boiled down to 2 main methods: inducing cold shivers in a person, using spiritual communion to detect symptoms, and using electrotherapy to stimulate flesh and organs, restoring their vitality. Especially when that demon electricity was in motion, the effects were the best. Yet, controlling it after it started rotating was difficult. Even he couldn't manage perfect control at the moment. At this point, Duan Yun asked, "What outcome do you desire from this ordeal?" Fan Gao replied, "All these years have passed, yet I still feel so angry." Duan Yun nodded and said, "Then demand money and threaten lives." Hearing the words, "threaten lives," Fan Gao shook his head and said, "Young hero, to threaten lives is still too extreme. After all is said and done, it isn't them who did the harming." Duan Yun proposed, "Fine, then make those above you lose a hand and a leg each." "Ah! Stop with the HS. This is the bottom line. Those who don't treat their workers as humans should be hung from streetlights," Duan Yun replied. Thereafter, Duan Yun returned to his carriage. These days, Fan Gao, together with a pile of money scavenged from Yellow Jade Island, played the role of guarding the treasure. Sitting in the carriage, Duan Yun sipped on fine wine brought from Crescent Bay, reflecting on the experiences at Yellow Jade Island and contemplating the martial world. Clearly, the martial world, indeed the entire world, was diseased. Why had it become this way? Those practicing martial arts committed adultery and murder. Those who haven't mastered the skills eagerly try to, and after mastering, they continue with both vices, even regarding being victimized as natural and just. This was the sickness of the martial world, and the people were sick too. And yes, there were also the cultivation techniques. Many cultivation techniques, good and bad, circulated throughout the martial world, some downright evil skills, yet too many people lacked self-awareness and still practiced them, becoming abnormal as a result. Unlike him, who was well aware of his exceptional martial artistry, no matter how he practiced, he remained normal. The worst part about these Jianghu people was that though they were the abnormal ones, they slandered him, a man with a just heart, branding him as a madman, an evil demon. Since there's a problem with the cultivation techniques, why not start from there? When he had just started his journey, Duan Yun had entertained the thought of teaching martial arts to the world. If everyone practiced orthodox cultivation techniques like his, which would not affect one's character, perhaps the world would have fewer madmen. Even if there were still many practicing evil skills, with more heroes like him training in orthodox techniques, they would be able to suppress the evil and strike down the crooked path. Unfortunately, the martial world held too many prejudices against him, with many still calling him an old demon, fearing him and his cultivation techniques. He felt it was necessary to integrate himself into the martial world. The nameless young hero carried the term nameless, so if many Jianghu people held prejudices against him, then he could infiltrate their ranks with the identity of an unknown Jianghu person and with that same identity, work to change their opinions and techniques. Gradually, Duan Yun had a rudimentary plan for spreading martial arts throughout the world. It couldn't be a blunt dissemination of techniques. It required a more subtle approach. If he openly declared that he, young hero Duan, was teaching the techniques, those biased against him would surely avoid it. But what if he were just a disciple of an ordinary sect? As a disciple of a sect, he could demonstrate extraordinary martial talent within the sect, discovering a new aspect of the sect's techniques. If it meant becoming stronger, wouldn't his fellow disciples and masters be inclined to practice this new technique he had discerned? This is what he called cultivation technique heroism. As long as he deeply immersed himself in the martial world, with his extraordinary wisdom, he could instill heroism in the techniques throughout the martial world. Even evil skills could become orthodox and even heroic. Wouldn't that reduce the dark sects and techniques in the martial world, possibly even producing more heroes filled with heroic spirit? Imagine the vast martial world with a large portion of the Jianghu people exclaiming, "I want to be a hero!" Engaging in acts of chivalry, that would be the martial chivalrous era he longed for. You know what? The more Duan Yun thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. If he was willing to put in the effort, this would ultimately be a martial world filled with heroes. As Duan Yun pondered these things, he couldn't help but look towards Xining sitting opposite him. Xining suddenly clutched her chest and said, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Duan Yun kept his gaze on her. Confused, "You seem different somehow." "What's different?" Xining inquired. "Back when we fought Jade Guanyin, you seemed different somehow, but I can't quite put my finger on how," Duan Yun stated, puzzled. At this, Xining became instantly alert. He must be referring to her bust. When her potential erupted, so did her bosom, reverting to its normal state. After that, she reverted, but who would have thought he'd notice? No, this was a life and death battle. How could you still pay attention to that? Xining hurriedly said, "I think there's something wrong with your eyes." Duan Yun thought for a long time but couldn't come up with a reason, so he gave up. Xining couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Honestly, she just liked to hide. Hiding gave a certain thrilling pleasure, so much so that one couldn't help but hum softly. Half a month later, Wangchun City was already in sight. On this journey, they didn't indulge in touring around but were instead making their way back. First, because Duan Yun still had to preside over justice, and second, the Murong brothers probably missed Ningqing very much and it was important to reassure them first. Duan Yun went to settle things for Fangao, while the others went back first. The sect controlling the blast shutter doors also had profound heritage. Having run the intelligence business for many years without any issues, they must possess real capability. But Xining and the others were not worried about Duan Yun taking Fangao alone. Would old Demon Duan, who even killed Jade Guanyin, be afraid of a branch of an intelligence organization? Before Duan Yun and Fangao even reached the blast shutter doors, the person in charge of the sect, accompanied by a middle-aged man, had come out to greet them on the street. "Young hero Duan, you've had a hard journey. Mr. Fan, we've wronged you. It's just that bastard's deception that fooled everyone. We were oblivious." The middle-aged man was the sect leader of this division, one of the 18 branches of the blast shutter doors sect. Duan Yun raised an eyebrow and said, "You've been waiting for us, haven't you?" "Not at all. Truly we wouldn't dare, young hero Duan." As intelligence dealers, they were well aware of the big commotion Duan Yun had created in Wuya City. Or to say, since the moment Duan Yun had inquired with them about Yellow Jade Island, they started paying attention to the developments there again. What they heard next was enough to scare someone to death. The city lord of Wuya City, along with several hundred subordinates, were all killed. This was shocking enough, but the key was the person on Yellow Jade Island. On Yellow Jade Island, there were actually survivors. Those were the disciples from Devil City. And they gradually released the news that on the island, Jade Guanyin and her 7 major disciples were all brutally killed by old Demon Duan, and the living dead were dealt with cleanly. This news reached the ears of the bloodthirsty storyteller, and they exaggerated even more, claiming those living dead, once highborn heirs and heavenly prides, could have been saved, but were all killed by old Demon Duan, trying to incite the noble clans to exterminate old Demon Duan. After all, these living dead were once the treasured darlings of these clans and sects. Unfortunately, the effect was mediocre and so far not many have responded. Some sects even accused them of spreading false rumors. After all, no matter how powerful the noble clans and sects were, They didn't believe they were stronger than Jade Guanyin. They had gone to great lengths to make trouble for Jade Guanyin previously, but ended up with no results. Yet Duan Yun actually managed to kill that female demon. No matter how treasured these individuals were, the dead ultimately remained dead. Nobody would provoke such a ferocious deity. It could lead to the obliteration of one's entire sect. After the Blast Shutter Doors sect received this news, they were even more terrified. They soon learned that their abandoned disciple, Fan Gao, was with Duan Yun. Thus they came early to greet them. They didn't dare to provoke Jade Guanyin before and promptly ceased any investigation on her. Now they dared not provoke Duan Yun even more so. Duan Yun and Fan Gao sat in the Blast Shutter Doors' elegant seating area, sipping tea. Duan Yun patted Fan Gao's shoulder and said to the manager and sect leader, "About this matter, how do you propose we settle it?" The manager quickly stood up and took out a box. A heavy box, filled with gold. "Mr. Fan, this is the compensation for what we owe you," totaling 300 taels of gold, all accounted for. While saying this, the manager's face twitched a little. This shiny gold, all handed to a poor man, truly a painful loss, but they had no choice but to offer it. 300 taels of gold was indeed enough for someone like Fan Gao to live comfortably for half a lifetime. Looking at the gold, Fan Gao said, "I want to ask Zhu Guangyu why he treated us like that." Duan Yun nodded and said, "Right, that's the key issue." At this, the sect leader perked up and said, "Young hero Mr. Fan, it's really impossible to ask that Zhu character now." Duan Yun raised an eyebrow and said, "Impossible to ask? Are you sure it's impossible to ask?" The sect leader spoke earnestly. "Young hero Duan, that bastard probably knew you were coming and, realizing his guilt, took several knives to his back and committed suicide yesterday." "Ah?" Such an outcome was truly beyond the expectations of Fan Gao and Duan Yun. Fan Gao shook his head and said, "I don't believe it." The manager hurriedly waved his hand and instructed, "Bring that bastard's corpse over here." Soon, a dead body was indeed carried over. Duan Yun glanced at it and asked, "Is it him?" Fan Gao nodded and confirmed, "It is indeed him." Duan Yun flipped over the body. It was true. There were more than 10 stab wounds on the back, each piercing through, death by multiple stab wounds. He couldn't help but sigh. It really was suicide. At this point, Fan Gao couldn't help but let out a long breath, seemingly relieved. On this journey, what he had most thought about was making the perpetrator lose limbs, to vent his anger. He didn't want to trouble young hero Duan. The sect also had its own rules. But now, this scoundrel had been suicided. Clearly, this was all because of young hero Duan. To satisfy young hero Duan and him, these people even killed this beast. At this moment, the manager hastily spoke up. "Mr. Fan, it's clear you're a man of talent. If you're willing, this guy's position can be yours in the future. Rest assured, you'll definitely have a bigger future ahead." Fan Gao shook his head and refused. "Forget it. I'm not cut out for this anymore. Farewell." This group of people could kill one of their own so easily. Truly cold-blooded. Seeing that Fan Gao, the person involved, was satisfied, Duan Yun also showed generosity. After all, even the main culprit had committed suicide. It was like giving him some face. Watching the menacing Duan Yun leave the sect, the manager and the sect leader couldn't help but exhale a long breath, their backs soaked with sweat. It had truly felt like dealing with King Yen himself. After leaving the sect, Duan Yun couldn't help asking, "What are your plans for the future?" With a smile, Fan Gao said, "Young hero Duan, where do you stay?" Duan Yun replied, "Over on the mountain near Yushir town." Fan Gao looked around and said, "I don't really have anywhere else to go, so I'll probably settle in Yushir town for now." "Young hero Duan, I won't bother you. I just want to stay close to you. If there's anything you need, just ask. My life is yours to command, and I am ready to go through fire and water for you. By the way, young hero Duan, although I no longer work for the sect, I believe I still have good skills in gathering intelligence. If you need to investigate anything in the future, just come to me." Looking into his hopeful eyes and thinking that this guy really had no family or friends left, Duan couldn't help but pat his shoulder, saying, "All right, make yourself at home for now. The fishing is good in Yushir town." Great! Duan and Fan Gao parted ways in Yushir town, the latter probably off to find a place to live. Duan felt that Fan Gao would do well here, as he could tell this was a friend worth trusting. Some matters are better left to trustworthy people, especially when it comes to intelligence gathering. Yes, Duan considered him a friend, one of his own. Damn it, this world has too few decent people. He really needed to start changing the martial world. If the martial world were filled with heroic spirit, it would surely become a much more beautiful place. That idea of diving into the martial world, reforming cultivation techniques and sex, resurfaced in Duan mind. Around Wangchun City, there actually wasn't much of such groundwork. After the slaughter at the graveyard and the Night of Azure Dragon, probably in awe of his heroic reputation, this area was quite peaceful and tranquil. Even the most common riffraff were scarce. Moreover, since Lady Yuju helped Old Gua take out a family that had committed marriage fraud, instances of such fraud had disappeared. One could say that this area had become a sanctuary. In this slightly hot season, some families wouldn't even lock their courtyard doors at night. In this world filled with deceit and murder, can you believe it? Who wouldn't believe it? Everyone knew that old Demon Duan enjoyed playing the role of a hero and was often active in this area. If anyone carelessly committed an error that Jianghu people were prone to, would they still have their lives? Duan thought it was truly time to go to a place mired in chaos. To delve into the martial world and reform it must start from the filthiest places. When Duan returned to Yuju Villa, he was in high spirits. You could say that having a villa and a bunch of friends felt quite nice. Duan had a similar fancy in his previous life. He dreamed of living in the same neighborhood with his closest friends, their villas next to each other, where even being single was fun. Now, it seemed like his wish had come true, and when he didn't want to be single, he could even pair up with a friend of the opposite sex. It was like an upgraded version of his original dream. One can only say that those who choose the life of a hero are not too unlucky, eventually leading the life they desire. But upon his arrival, he found a row of people standing outside the Murong brothers' room, not daring to enter. Especially Ning Qing, who was looking particularly anxious. Duan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that that idiot Murong had not returned for a long time and committed suicide out of love? He quickly craned his neck to look and asked, "What's going on?" Xining said, "Hair." Duan peered inside and, good gracious, he saw a swath of hair under the bed. The hair spread out like green aquatic plants, bizarre when fully laid out. It had been said that Murong's sister, Fu Wanjun, was a white-haired witch, whose head of hair moved like a living thing and could injure people like a sword. Now, Murong's hair was not to be outdone. No, due to its green tinge, it was even more sinister. Don't! Don't! At this moment, Murong, who was under the bed, shouted out loud. Almost simultaneously, his hair also began to move gently, appearing like venomous snakes. The kind of snakes that can raise their bodies like chicken crown snakes, giving off an especially dangerous aura. Ning Qing anxiously said, "Ever since we got back, he's been talking in his sleep like this, and we can't wake him." Xining said, "He seems about to lash out whenever we get close, so we dare not rashly approach." Duan raised an eyebrow, thinking to himself, "Murong indeed lives up to his reputation as a martial talent second only to me by a long shot, secretly learning skills and even cultivating in his dreams." At that time, Murong recited, "The taste of the world has waned year by year, who commands the horseback traveler in the capital. On a pavilion, one night listening to spring rain, in deep alleys selling apricot flowers at dawn, wet scribbles thwarted by slanting paper, sunlight through the window splits tea with care. Don't let plain clothes rise with dusty sighs. Still enough time before Qingming to get back home." As soon as he finished his sleep talk, half of his hair lay flat quite a bit, as if the previously dangerous green hair turned into a tall and graceful green-clad girl. One half of his hair was full of danger, like snakes. The other half was like a girl, pure and romantic, creating a truly magical scene. Don't. Don't. A night listening to spring rain. I would sell apricot flowers for you. It was clear that his tone when shouting don't was completely different from that of reciting poetry, as if he was dreaming two dreams at the same time. One seemed very dangerous as he shouted, don't, while the other was poetic and pure, beautiful like poetry. The next moment, his two distinctly different strands of hair began to fight against each other, as if a snake and a person were entangled in combat. Feng Linger couldn't help but exclaim, "Doesn't this look just like fighting with oneself?" Ning Qing voiced concerns. Could this cause him to go berserk? Feng Linger replied, "Who knows? He's weird to begin with. Going berserk would be normal for him." Honestly, Murong lying under the bed practicing martial arts looked a bit scary. This would be seriously horror movie material with no need for special effects. Back off. Suddenly, Shuning up front said so. At this moment, the two battling strands of hair suddenly changed direction, turning towards them. It was as if both the person and the snake found a common enemy. Damn it! Damn it! Old demon Duan's damn it! The curved blade under the full moon. 12 layers of spring rain. I command you to spin together. Murong beneath the bed shouted frantically. You can't deny. Those few shouted phrases of his hemmed a tenth of Duan Yun's flair. Consequently, everyone felt the danger. The moment Shin-ing and others retreated, the two patches of hair indeed whirled into action, turning into two streaks of light, lunging towards the doorway. Suddenly, the hair strands were as sharp as blades, half like spinning spring rain, the other half like a crescent moon. Both forces were already as sharp as knives, probably sharper than actual blades, and even more miraculous was that in this moment, they collided with each other. The crescent moon and the spring rain intermingled, just like a green-skirted maiden merging with a green snake. Where the spinning strands of hair passed, the air was sliced into continuous white lines, like frayed threads. Shin-ing and the others were either leaping into the air or falling to the ground to dodge, while Duan Yun burst out laughing, advancing rather than retreating. Body-breaking sword pillar. A black body-breaking sword pillar burst forth from Duan Yun's chest, carrying an ominous aura of death. With a loud bang, the thick, black body-breaking sword pillar collided with the two whirling strands of hair, as if a column had been shoved into the mouth of a jar, stirring everything up madly. The two terrible forces collided, whipping up the surrounding air like whirlpools, creating a terrifying vortex. Ning Qing and the others' clothes were sucked by the swirl, clinging tightly to their bodies, revealing lovely figures. Not bad. Seeing this, Duan Yun pushed his body forward, and the body-breaking sword pillar turned blacker and thicker, with a streak of pure white at its core. Murong's green hair became greener and sharper, with a dull thud, like the beat of a heavy war drum. Duan Yun's figure swayed, retreating 3 steps and crashing through the doorframe. Suddenly, Murong shouted, "I want to be a hero," along with the bed, bursting through the wall, flying out. Together with the bed, he tumbled several times in the mud pit of the backyard, getting his face smothered in Big White's dung, as Murong slowly came to his senses. The moment he came to, he saw Ning Qing, Duan Yun, and his several half-sisters. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. Back? Did everyone he cared about return upon waking up? Especially Ning Qing. His heaven had returned. Daybreak. The next moment, both parties gazed at each other with affection, tears brimming in their eyes. In just an instant, Murong had 1,000 words he wanted to tell Ning Qing, to tell her how much he missed her, was worried about her, and he even really wanted to sing her a song. They drew close in a flash. Murong, unable to contain his long-accumulated longing, yelled at Ning Qing, "I want to be a hero." Ning Qing. Murong quickly gave himself a slap, saying, "No, Qing, what I wanted to say is, I want to be a hero." Ning Qing, Shun-ing and others. They couldn't help but look towards Duan Yun. Just now, Duan Yun, who had stepped back 3 paces and was being supported by Shin-ing and Feng Linger on each side, Duan Yun shrugged. His sword intent was strange. I could only add heroic spirit. Don't worry. It'll be fine in a day and a night. Morong became so anxious that he jumped as every time he wanted to speak to Ning Qing, to say the loving words he'd kept inside. The moment he opened his mouth, it was, I want to be a hero. Ning Qing no longer cared about that, and suddenly embraced Morong. Watching the two embrace, Duan Yun and the two female heroes at his side felt relieved and happy. The sense of achievement from going out to slay Jade Guanin's entire family and saving people increased again. At this moment, Feng Linger looked at Duan Yun with concern, saying, Are you okay? Ever since Duan Yun and Morong crossed swords, she noticed something off about his expression. Duan Yun frowned. His sword intent truly has issues, it's very sinister. Xin Ying's delicate eyebrows slightly furrowed, a nervous expression on her face. What issues? It's hard for me to describe, look here. While saying this, Duan Yun lifted his right hand and spread open his palm. Xin Ying looked at his palm, not noticing the issue at first, couldn't help but lean in a bit. But the next instant, Duan Yun kissed her on the cheek. Xin Ying jumped back a whole 10 feet, exclaiming, Lewd thief, you're shameless. Though she said this, she felt a sweet sensation in her heart, like having tasted candy, and her face blushed. In this moment, she almost felt back in the entangled silkworm threads, facing this lewd thief eye to eye. On one side, Xin Ying's face turned red, and on the other, Feng Linger's face turned green. Green turning to dark purple. This trip out, her situation had been great. She was playing the role of the legitimate wife, and the aura was fully showing. She had been leading all along, but then Xin Ying, this shameless mistress, not only stole the home run, but on return, they play this? As if I don't exist, as if I'm just air? The next instant, Duan Yun suddenly turned around and kissed her also on the cheek, a satisfied look on his face. Feng Linger touched her cheek, blinking her eyes. Xin Ying also blinked her eyes. Thus, at this moment, the tables turned. Xin Ying's face turned green, while Feng Linger's turned red. Seeing this, Duan Yun shrugged. Don't blame me. Morong's sword intent has issues. I just really wanted to kiss and to cuckold people. Indeed, his breaking body sword energy was infused with white heroic spirit, while Morong's hair was tinged with green. Two different greens. One was as lovely as a girl in a green dress holding an oil paper umbrella amidst spring rain, evoking love, while the other was like a vicious, venomous snake. The two greens mixed together were unbearable. One could say that both parties' moves contained intent. Duan Yun used heroic spirit to resolve the complex greens, resulting in the greens changing. He used heroic spirit to attack the venomous snake-like green, turning it into his desire to cuckold people, whereas the heroic spirit and the green like that of the girl in green dress merged into a longing to talk about pure love with a female hero. He could suppress this feeling with his profound abilities and supreme willpower, probably dissolving it in less than the time it takes an incense stick to burn. But at this moment, looking at Xin Ying and Feng Linger on either side, he suddenly didn't want to suppress or resolve it. And so, after kissing both female heroes, he satisfied the impulse to talk about pure love and also made both of them turn green with jealousy, fulfilling his own desire to cuckold. Look, pure love and cuckolding didn't conflict. After all, his feelings for every girl were pure love. Realizing Xin Ying and Feng Linger were both watching him, Duan Yun shrugged. Why look at me? I said it was Morong's sword intent that influenced me. The responsibility lies with Morong. I don't believe you, you trickster. Let's flatten him. At this time, the two female heroes had already charged to beat up Duan Yun. Ziyu, witnessing the situation, her gaze is deep. They're all men and women of loose morals. All should be written off. The ending must be tragic. Inside Yuzhu Villa, the atmosphere became filled with joy. At this moment, Ning Qing suddenly said, Your hair. Morong touched his hair in confusion. What's wrong? Ah. Duan Yun and the others looked towards Morong's hair and couldn't help but burst into laughter. It was because just now, Morong had transformed 2 rounds of his hair into swords, spinning them out using the hair on the top of his head. So when the wind blew, it looked like he had gone bald in the middle, much like Shimin Shui Shui. Morong also realized this, nervously saying, "Could it be? Am I not going to be bald? I'm so handsome, how could I go bald?" Saying this, he suddenly looked towards Duan Yun. Agitated, "Old demon Duan, it's your fault. Quick, save my hair." Duan Yun, with an expressionless face, said, "You practiced with your own hair, and it's my responsibility? I want to be a hero." Morong brothers shouted while seeking help. He didn't want the shadow of baldness to mar his handsomeness. Especially in front of the person he loves, he must maintain a perfect image. So, he was rather afraid, given that both his father and grandfather suffered from hair loss. Duan Yun explained, "Don't worry, scientifically speaking, as long as the hair follicles are okay, hair will grow back sooner or later." Morong brothers didn't understand science and quickly asked, "What if there's a problem with the hair follicles?" Duan Yun said, "Then I'll give you an electrical stimulation. No problem." Hearing this, Morong brothers jumped for joy. The next moment, he and Duan Yun embraced each other, even tighter than when hugging Ning Qing. "Good brother. Thank you," he said, patting Duan Yun's back loudly. Of course, his gratitude wasn't just for his hair, or to put it better, his hair was only a small part of it. He was more thankful for Duan Yun traveling far to the dangerous desert and Yellow Jade Island, saving his loved one. Watching the 2 men hug tightly together, Shining, Feng Linger, and Ning Qing all showed complex expressions. Only Ziyu, excited, exclaimed, "Right, testosterone. We need to add a testosterone plot." At night, Yuzhu Villa hosted a lavish dinner banquet. Morong brothers shouted, "I want to be a hero," while using all of his culinary skills to reward the returning heroes. Because he was injured and couldn't advance, this was his way of repaying the trio of Duan Yun. He indicated that if Duan Yun and the others hadn't returned, he was ready to set off to find them. He said he'd rather die together with them. Who would have thought? Duan Yun would never let him down. This time it was the entire family of Jade Guanyin that perished. In less than 2 years, how many sects have been wiped out because of Duan Yun? Now, as the dishes were almost all served, Morong brothers looked at everyone and said, "There are still 2 fish in the tank. My specialty is coming right up. No more West Lake vinegar fish. No more West Lake vinegar fish." Everyone spoke in unison. Seeing this, Morong brothers, with a choked-up air, pointed at them and said, "You really have no taste." That night, everyone drank the grape wine brought back from the desert and ate the delicious dishes Morong brothers cooked with all his might, chatting merrily. At this moment, Duan Yun couldn't help but talk about his ideas for changing the martial world. Feng Linger said, "That's easy. Just move to a different place." Duan Yun puzzled, "Do you know a suitable place?" "There are few peaceful places in the martial world, but there are too many chaotic ones," Feng Linger replied. Shun Ying thoughtfully said, "Since we want to eliminate the filth, naturally we should choose the most chaotic place." At this moment, Ziyu chimed in, "Why not go to Qingzhou?" "Qingzhou?" Duan Yun puzzled. "I heard a few days ago on the road within Qingzhou's borders, White Sock sect, relying on their years of operation, barely drove out the Jade Sword sect, but also suffered heavy losses themselves. Both sides can be said to have suffered. White Sock sect lost 5 branch sects, and now no longer have the strength to maintain their dominance in Qingzhou. So many forces are going there to carve up their territory. The place is a total mess, with Qinghe City being the worst," explained Ziyu. Although she was only a passerby on Yellow Jade Island, Ziyu developed a strong interest in being righteous and acted very enthusiastically in this regard. Duan Yun said, "If this is true, I would like to pick a day to head to Qingzhou. Who wants to go?" As soon as his words fell, everyone present raised their hands high. "That's nonsense. In righteousness and heroism, are we female heroes any worse than you?" "Exactly. Could you have killed the entire family of Jade Guanyin without us?" Seeing this group of people so filled with heroic spirit, Duan Yun couldn't help but laugh. Birds of a feather flock together indeed. In Yuju Villa, they are all heroes. Yes, after a period of rest, head for Qingzhou. He wants to change the martial world, and if change is difficult, then he will overturn this rotten maritime world before changing it. Fan Gao rented a small courtyard and temporarily settled down in Yusher town. He lived there for half a month and found the place to be quite unusual. Although it was not far from Wangchun City, a place filled with desires, it was filled with a peaceful and tranquil atmosphere. There was none of the city lords like in Wuya City, who would harm or kill people without a second thought. Even the hooligans who caused trouble everywhere were nowhere to be found. Some people here even slept with their doors unlocked. Although it was men who did so, weren't they afraid of being attacked at night? Having worked in intelligence for many years, Fan Gao knew such places existed, but they were usually isolated from the world, such as Taoyuan, which one could only enter if fate allowed. But this place was not isolated. Yet it still managed to be so, which could be called a miracle. Gradually, he learned that this miracle was created by young hero Duan. He confirmed once again that even if one did nothing, just being close to young hero Duan was quite blissful. Fan Gao's poison had been cured on the road, and after returning, he rested and recuperated. He often visited old Chen's shop to buy some old marinade, eating and drinking well, and his health had improved quite a bit. Now, he was practicing his leg technique in the courtyard. As someone who collected intelligence, his fists might not be fast or ruthless, but his feet had to be nimble, run fast, and be able to maneuver. After practicing, he sat in the courtyard, sipped some wine, and tended to the scallions he had planted a few days ago. Fan Gao was actually quite young, just over 30 years old, but he was already living a life like an old man. It was a comfortable life, but he was still not quite used to it. He originally agreed to work in the intelligence field because he quite liked it. Even though he had suffered a heavy setback that nearly cost him his life, he still enjoyed the work now. He wasn't interested in women or men, and he wasn't old, so just living off gold without doing anything was not very appealing. However, Fan Gao was very patient. He said he would go through fire and water for Yun, and he was prepared to do so. He was willing to wait for such an opportunity, even if there was none. Just when he had settled down, there was a knock on the courtyard door. The moment Fan Gao opened the door, he was all fired up. Yun was standing outside. Yun could tell that Fan Gao was a trustworthy person and was willing to treat him as one of his own. So, this time he approached him and explained his purpose. I need a house in Qinghe city of Qingzhou. As long as it's big enough, a bit remote and rundown will do. Fan Gao efficiently noted the key points and planned to set off immediately. Yun couldn't help but remind him. It's said to be quite chaotic there at the moment. Be careful. Fan Gao nodded. Young hero, rest assured. My skills haven't gotten rusty. Surviving on Yellow Jade Island means one has to be alert and skilled. Yun trusted his professionalism. Now, they just needed to secure the house and they could set off. They will go to Qingzhou to continue shining their lights. What a bright white future awaits these heroes. While Fan Gao was searching for the house, Yun and the others enjoyed their leisure time, practicing martial arts, eating meals, fishing. And Morong was busying himself with Ning Qing, and trying hard to catch up with Yun's slight lead, practicing martial arts under the bed daily. Yun was practicing the yellow intense skills. Concerned that yellow jade might cause mutations, such as turning into a biological mother like Jade Guanyin, Yun naturally could not follow the same cultivation path. According to the secret book, yellow jade is said to be the foundation of this cultivation technique, but now Yun was planning to remove this foundation for cultivation. Extraordinary wisdom. What do you think? Yun pondered while looking at the secret book. Meanwhile, his extraordinary wisdom also began to spin. The secret book described that Jade Guanyin sensed the energy inside yellow jade, as though that substance was a living thing, or perhaps a blood, and was gradually able to condense yellow crystal according to the cultivation technique and then burst open, unleashing terrifying power. Yun couldn't help but open his train of thought, wondering if the inner structure of yellow jade was so miraculous. Could it be alien blood? Yes, he had always suspected that yellow jade was a strongly radioactive mineral that could cause mutations, just like the sci-fi novels where meteorites hide alien secrets. Unfortunately, this thought would seem odd if used in a sci-fi martial arts novel. His focus remained on the cultivation technique itself. Without yellow jade, crystals cannot be formed, and without crystals, it's hard to burst forth. What if I just burst forth? Yun's attention instantly focused on the method of bursting forth. Unconsciously, he started to experiment and found it not difficult. He didn't even use his extraordinary wisdom to research. Could only be said that he was indeed a rare martial arts genius, who now possessed various secret skills and could make connections across different arts. The method of bursting forth, in summary, was actually simple: resonance. Jade Guanyin relied on the trembling of the true qi within her body, resonating strongly with the yellow crystals she condensed, thus unleashing terrible energy. Unconsciously, true qi in Yun's body also began to tremble in a similar way. He thought of his body as an instrument, or perhaps a divine drum, and as true qi surged within, it produced vibrations. The vibration brought about sound waves, but not noticeably, or rather, not substantially formed. Unlike Jade Guanyin, who should have been cultivating within yellow jade for years and could immediately connect with yellow crystal. At that moment, Yun sat there, deep in thought. Murong had just finished up in the outhouse and was bubbling with the lively spirit of spring as he headed to meet Ning Qing, unable to help himself from humming softly. As soon as the humming began, Duan Yun discovered that the true qi within his body started to have a bit of rhythm. He quickly grabbed hold of Murong and said, "Keep going." A befuddled Murong asked, "Keep going with what?" "Keep humming. I need to listen," Duan Yun said seriously. Murong had initially been humming quite leisurely and contentedly, but he got nervous when told to continue like this. "Why would one big guy like you want to listen to another big guy humming?" Murong crossed his arms across his chest, as if he were channeling both Shining and Feng Linger, the girls of shadow, questioning his intent. While allowing the true qi within him to continue trembling, Duan Yun critiqued, "Bro, you've got a receding hairline. That hairstyle is too much even for Dehua. Let alone you're not at all Dehua-like." Duan Yun had once explained to Murong that Dehua was a handsome young man from his hometown. Although Murong initially felt challenged and wanted to compare himself with Dehua, subsequent events had hit his pride hard, and he had since dropped the topic but also realized that it implied that he was no longer considered handsome. "Hurry up and hum. My extraordinary wisdom is listening," Duan Yun added. Hearing the words, extraordinary wisdom, Murong straightened his face immediately. He knew that old Demon Duan was contemplating his cultivation again, but what does my humming have to do with it? Seeing his serious expression, Murong dared not be careless and quickly resumed his light humming. However, after listening to it twice, Duan Yun frowned and said, "The frequency is off. Bring back the energy from your earlier humming." Murong tried hard to recall his earlier humming while gradually entering the mood he had been in at that time. With Ning Qing's return, every day was like spring to Murong. Excited about going to buy some roasted meat together as planned today, imagining the sight of them running together under the setting sun carrying roasted meat, he couldn't keep from starting to hum again. At this moment, Duan Yun felt something was right. The trembling true qi inside him showed signs of change, as if it wanted to respond to the humming. Duan Yun quickly focused and sank his energy into his dantian, feeling the changes in true qi more attentively. And he found that amid the trembling true qi, the spring thunder power was exceptionally active, wisping through vigorously. Spring thunder being so vibrant, could it be related to how Murong's humming seemed to be embroiled in spring passion? "Keep going. Increase the strength. Make it more spring-like," Duan Yun urged. "More spring-like." Murong was confused. Then it dawned on him. He was being asked to embrace a springtime mood. Thus, Murong hummed louder and with a quicker pace. His humming suddenly drew the attention of the others in the estate. Shening, Fenglinger, Ziyu, and Ning Qing arrived one after another. They saw Duan Yun with his hand on Murong's shoulder while Murong was humming with effort, all wearing puzzled expressions on their faces. Feng Linger couldn't help but ask Ning Qing, "Does Murong normally have such a weird habit?" A confused Ning Qing replied, "Sometimes he does laugh stupidly like an idiot, but I've never seen him do this." Feng Linger nodded. "Then you're in luck." They had never heard a man hum like this. To hum so saucily together with his sparse hair, perverted was an understatement for this level of perversity. Meanwhile, Duan Yun's eyes brightened. "I've got it. Spring thunder and this guy's spring fever-like humming are at similar frequencies, which means they can resonate. What if I made my true qi release a similar kind of hum?" Duan Yun went straight for it. He concentrated intently, using the vibrational frequency of spring thunder power as a foundation, and brought his true qi closer to this frequency. The moment true qi and spring thunder power merged perfectly, ripples suddenly appeared all around. These fluctuations blended with Murong's humming in an instant as if they were merging seamlessly. Murong, who had been humming until his throat was hoarse and wanted to take a break, suddenly opened his eyes wide, uncontrollably humming aloud. The humming suddenly escalated, and even though it was a soft hum, it sounded incredibly high-pitched, both soft and high. It was like he was possessed. What was even more bizarre was that Feng Linger, along with the three other ladies, spontaneously started humming and even tapping their feet to a rhythm. In that moment, it was as though everyone was immersed in the overflowing vitality of spring. Duan Yun was embracing them, naked, feeling unprecedented happiness in body and soul. This feeling was unstoppable, like an incoming tide. However, the scene Duan Yun saw was completely different. He not only heard the humming of the 5 people around him, but also more beyond that. He felt like a musical instrument himself, with the spring thunder power inside resonating like strings, producing a humming sound and creating a resonance wherever it went. As they resonated together, the hums spread far and wide, undeniably compelling. This was precisely Ming Chao Ye. "That's not right." Ziyu was the first to snap out of it. Or rather, it was the green jade lurking within her consciousness that reacted first. Hearing her say this, Shun Ying regained her senses for a moment, and while still humming called out, "Qi condensation." Feng Linger was the last to catch on, but by the time she tried to condense her qi, it was too late. As she was humming, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. That humming was toxic. The humming along with her chaotic true qi vibrated so much that it injured her amidst the spring-like visions. Seeing this, Duan Yun hastily stopped. Even after stopping, people within the estate were still humming. Not only the few of them but also Big White, who had come to check out the commotion after hearing the humming, was continuously humming without understanding why. Feng Linger plopped down on the ground with blood at the corner of her mouth, gently humming, "What are you playing at? Are you trying to kill me?" Whether it was because she felt dizzy from spitting blood or for some other reason, she still saw Duan Yun as naked and standing under the peach tree, so handsome that she couldn't help but hum involuntarily. However, in that light hum, she actually sustained an internal injury. Duan Yun quickly examined her injury and pondered, "A minor internal injury, with disordered true qi. Thankfully, it's not too bad." Since Feng Linger's life was not in danger, he then let go of his worries. But then he suddenly noticed that all 5 people were humming lightly while looking at him. Murong, horrified, exclaimed, "What's going on here? I'm so tired from humming. Why can't I stop? Hum, 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 hum." Murong, being the closest to Duan Yun, resonated the most with Duan Yun's body language. However, because he hummed, his true qi followed a similar frequency, and he was not shaken into internal injury. Instead, he just couldn't stop humming. Shen Ying and the others realized this in time, concentrating their qi to control their true qi. Although they were injured, they were not hurt enough to spit blood. Only Feng Linger. She lived up to her reputation as the martial world's flower fanatic beauty. Completely enraptured by the spring scene, resonated by Duan Yun. She didn't wake up at first. Even after being shaken to the point of an internal injury and spitting blood, she still felt blissful. By now, Duan Yun had almost grasped the effect of this tremoring resonance. First off, his clothes had started to tear slightly, like the Jade Guanin's explosive shedding effect, And then he could clearly feel that with the eruption of the spring thunder true chi light hum within him, he could produce energy fluctuations like Jade Guanin's yellow crystal. Wherever this energy fluctuation passed, it would cause others' true chi to experience a sudden upheaval, resonating with him and creating tide-like waves. Because of the true chi's dramatic change, those who resonate without preparation will be shaken and injured, and will continuously emit light hums. At this time, Morong recalled, "It's so bizarre. When I was humming, I always felt like I was embracing Ning Qing. It felt blissful." In fact, he omitted the not-safe-for-work details of their embrace barely clothed. At this moment, the faces of Shin Ying and the other women all turned red, because at that time they were all thinking of Duan Yun. Ning Qing's face was the reddest as she said to Morong, "I was also thinking of you at that time." At this moment, Morong felt an extreme happiness, so he hummed even faster. Everyone suddenly realized that the light hums were somehow related to their mindset. The happier you felt, the faster you would hum. "What kind of evil skill is this?" Feng Linger hummed and complained. In everyone's eyes, old Demon Duan's cultivation technique was truly bizarre, seeming like a tricky sound wave skill that disrupts true chi, yet it could make people feel as if they were in springtime, as if in a spring dream immersed in happiness. But if you are not careful, you could get hurt amidst this happiness. Flower fanatic Feng Linger was the perfect example. If it wasn't for Ziyu's timely warning, Shin Ying and the others might have ended up like Feng Linger. Upon hearing Feng Linger call his cultivation an evil skill, Duan Yun couldn't help but retort, "How could this be a demon technique? Although this is originally derived from the Jade Guanin's demon technique, it is a new enlightenment by this young hero. Can a young hero's cultivation technique be called a demon technique? Right, it must be because I didn't include heroic spirit. It would definitely be more orthodox if I add in the heroic spirit. Extraordinary wisdom. Infuse me with heroic spirit now." With that said, he stood up as if going crazy, and his internal true chi began to tremble again. This time, the spring thunder was even more excited, and the heroic spirit was swirling. Upon these words, the line of people scattered like they had seen a ghost, with Feng Linger even running off without her shoes. If this ghost cultivation technique were to be infused with heroic spirit, who knew what would happen? Thinking back to when they were first affected by this technique, when they had the images in their minds while humming, they just felt that the technique was too perverse, too shameless. Especially Feng Linger and Shin Ying, who were both angry and complaining. Who would want to embrace a pervert who is naked, even if the guy is handsome and well-built? This guy is just forcing me to think these things. Humph, the more you force it, the more I won't agree to you. In her excitement, Feng Linger almost spit out blood again. In the past few days, old Demon Duan has been focused on developing his new ultimate move, Ming Chao. Within a few meters around him, there was practically no one, not even Big White wanted to come close. Because this move ripples like sound waves, and anyone standing within it might inadvertently have amorous dreams, hum gently, or even suffer internal injuries. Sometimes people would hum softly while shouting, "I want to be a hero." Those in the know would understand they were under attack by old demon's demon technique, while others might think they're mad. They also concluded from experience that the most effective way to avoid internal injuries is to kneel and condense their chi. Meaning, whenever old Demon Duan practices, they would hum softly while kneeling. He's not the heavenly king. Why should we pay early tributes to him? The key is the posture. Duan Yun stands while practicing, but they can only kneel. Especially the women. Their view while kneeling falls right on Duan Yun's crotch, which is utterly humiliating. Duan Yun noticed they were all avoiding him, and couldn't help but say, "Come out. I promise not to use Ming Chao casually these days." Ziyu poked her head out and asked, "Do you promise?" She had long heard of old demon's evil skills, but the reality of old demon Duan's Ming Chao technique was beyond her expectations. In her writing imagination, old Demon Duan's Ming Chao cultivation technique could completely evolve into an extremely humiliating move against female heroes. Those gentle hums, amorous dreams, kneeling before old demon, or kneeling while having amorous dreams and humming, each scenario could evoke endless thoughts. enough to write tens of thousands of words in description. Promise, Duan Yun replied. Only then did everyone at Yuzhu Manor breathe a sigh of relief and return to normal life. For the initial few days, Ning Qing was somewhat restless, because she felt she was making a mistake common to all women. Although the one she loves is Murong, each time affected by Duan Yun's demon technique, entering a dreamlike state, the one appearing in her dreams wasn't Murong, but Duan Yun. However, she soon came to terms with it. Dreaming isn't something I can control. Dreaming about someone handsome is normal. Murong dreams of me because I'm naturally pretty. Exactly. If he dreams of other women with me being this attractive, that would be unfaithfulness. Afterwards, Ning Qing returned to being herself. As the weather gradually warmed, bringing a hint of summer, Fan Gao brought news. The good news was that the house Duan Yun was looking for had been found. The bad news was that it was a haunted house. Haunted house. Isn't that even better? Upon hearing haunted house, Duan Yun became even more excited. Couldn't help but praise Fan Gao's expertise. Young hero Duan looks for a house, and indeed likes this kind of flavor. The house at Qingcha Market is in the suburbs, where one can see graveyard ghost fires in summer, and Yuzhu Manor is nestled beside a graveyard. A treasure trove in terms of feng shui. If one found a plain and cheap house, he'd feel no excitement. Upon hearing they were going to Qingzhou, the Yuzhu heroes became eager. People always love something new, especially when the surroundings of Yuzhu Manor become too peaceful. They've long wanted to unleash their talents elsewhere. A hero needs to shine in chaotic places. The group packed up with great fervor, shouting for departure by dusk. Thus, Yuzhu Manor's 2 men, for women, 1 bear, and 1 donkey set out at dusk. They planned to travel at night. Big White, carrying a carriage, ran steadier than 2 horses. Duan Yun watched and couldn't help but praise. Indeed worthy of being an ancient divine beast, so useful. At night, while traveling along the road, they would stop to light a fire and roast meat at midnight. At that moment, Duan Yun couldn't help reminiscing about his first time camping in the wild. Back then, he was alone and almost got defiled by Red House Madwoman. And that night, he also met the first pair of shadow women, goddess catcher sisters Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue. He wondered what the sisters had been up to lately. Looking at the flickering firelight swaying in the wind, as the group ate roasted meat, Duan Yun felt a subtle mood. He now had some fame in the martial world, yet that feeling of roaming the martial world hadn't changed. The martial world still felt novel, exciting, and utterly frustrating to him. Nonetheless, he had transformed from a gynecologist into a gynecologist with a little power to change the martial world. At night, Duan Yun lay inside the carriage, no longer worried about being defiled, because not only did he have many like-minded companions by his side, but even his pet panda could stand guard. Big White had pulled the carriage for most of the night, and now still acts as a guard. But it was a serious guard, as evident by the rhythm of its snores. Along the way, Duan Yun and the group could feel it. The closer they got to Qingzhou, the more chaotic the territory felt. They originally set off with a carriage full of luggage, but upon reaching Qingzhou, it turned into 2 carriages. Due to being robbed 4 times along the way. Only say the ill-gotten gains all ended up with them. Shining and others were even delighted because amongst the ill-gotten gains was a dressing table. Just felt being a hero was really great. Shining couldn't help but marvel. How did they know I needed a dressing table? This time it was a long journey, so naturally couldn't carry too much stuff. Yet unexpectedly the luggage kept increasing and becoming more abundant. On the road, through Fan Gao's descriptions, Duan Yun gained a general understanding of Qinghe City. Qinghe City has always been a significant martial arts city, filled with numerous martial world people. To such extreme there were almost no civilians, only disciples and members of various sects and factions. This is all because it is beneath a great mountain. That mountain is called Golden Mountain. Although Golden Mountain has no gold, it hides things more precious than gold. It is said that inside there is a golden palace, holding the divine skills secret manual that everyone in the world longs for. While the 12 divine valleys are rather mysterious tales, even now, nobody has understood how to enter them. Yes, even figures like the Murong ancestor, who indeed comprehended divine skills from the divine valley, could not remember how to enter after leaving the valley. According to the Murong family genealogy, the memory of entering the divine valley seems to have been erased from thin air. One can say that the 12 divine valleys, known for the saying, divine skills come from the divine valley, are like illusions for the people of the martial world due to their mysterious and obscure entry methods. But Golden Valley is different. The Golden Palace inside Golden Valley truly exists. For hundreds of years in the martial world, only a few can be called martial gods with verified accounts. And 2 of those martial gods found the Golden Valley mastering peerless skills. Especially the last and most renowned Valkyrie, tall, wearing a golden half-mask with a disabled right arm but a more dexterous golden arm than a human's, roamed the martial world undefeated for decades after emerging from Golden Mountain. This Valkyrie, unrivaled in style, returned to Golden Mountain 30 years later, undefeated, and never appeared again. As time passed and the world changed, the Valkyrie became a story over 100 years old. Golden Mountain has become a treasure land for people of the martial world. A swarm of martial artists flocked to the area around Golden Mountain, hoping to traverse the path of the martial gods and uncover the divine skills inside the Golden Palace, to roam the martial world. Because too many martial artists came, what was once a remote small town, Qinghe Town, gradually developed into a city. A large city where martial artists gathered. The many martial artists that came looking for treasure made various sects want to join in, making the place very dangerous. Many people were killed before even entering the mountains to seek treasure. Such brutal and thrilling events concluded when the White Sox sect entered Qingzhou, forcibly taking over Qinghe City. Even if other sects and gangs wanted to enter the mountains for treasure, they had to see the White Sox sect's attitude. With the aggressive takeover of the White Sox sect, the fervor gradually cooled down. Because the White Sox sect's methods were vicious, no man or woman could escape their twisted desires. Moreover, for over 100 years, martial artists have never ceased their exploration of Golden Mountain. Yet none have truly succeeded. What shocked people the most was that someone else actually reached the Golden Palace later but failed to bring out the Divine Skill Secret Manual successfully. That person was Wei Sanquan, the chief disciple of the rat phase among the 12 star signs, reportedly possessing half of the rat phase's essence. Wei Sanquan reached the Golden Palace, but not long after he came out, he went mad. He described the Golden Palace as a pure gold-built palace, without any impurity, with a blood-red tree inside. The Divine Skill Secret Manual is on that tree. He couldn't reach it because the Valkyrie was there. In his words, though supposedly a dead Valkyrie after all these years, she was still alive, wandering the Golden Palace. He had to sacrifice 8 subordinates to escape. But not long after escaping, he went mad and even gouged out his own eyes before dying. It's said that when he died, a strange flower bloomed in the eye sockets he gouged out. This is truly a shocking story, even a ghost story, yet it really happened. It shrouded the mysterious Golden Palace in a layer of eerie terror. Yet this mysterious horror did not deter many people, instead making martial artists even more frenzied. Because this proved that the Golden Palace exists and can be found. However, the White Sox sect has always suppressed that area, so the greedy martial artists could only sneak into the mountains. Until the White Sox sect and the Jade Sword sect erupted in fierce battles. The Jade Sword sect originally had far less foundation than the White Sox sect, which had been operating in Qingzhou for many years, but their regenerative force was too strong. Back then, wherever the Jade Sword sect went, a city of women often appeared. The Jade Maidens were endless, while the White Sox sect's bloody rule in Qingzhou had offended many sect influences. These powerful factions secretly sent male disciples to join the Jade Sword sect to deal with the White Sox sect, trying to regain what they lost. These men turning into women, many disciples naturally refused, but these factions were no simple characters, castrating the male disciples before ordering them. Gradually, these male disciples also found the beauty of being women, becoming Jade Maidens. This is why the Jade Sword sect could fight so long on the White Sox sect's territory. This is because they not only had the undefeated faith heroic venerate, but also endless reinforcements. But eventually, the purity of the Jade Sword sect was insufficient, as many new Jade Maidens' motives were impure, not fully dedicated to the martial spirit of heroic venerate. Coupled with the White Sox sect's intensified efforts, this wounded the Jade Sword sect's foundation. The Jade Sword sect gradually withdrew from Qingzhou, but the White Sox sect also suffered heavy losses, unable to fully control Qingzhou, including Qinghe City. Thus, Qinghe City suddenly became lively again. Various sect forces not only started reclaiming territories but also wanted to thoroughly turn over Golden Mountain, making it a mess. Even professionals like Fan Gao felt the danger there, barely finding the house Duan Yun wanted. Duan Yun did not anticipate Qinghe City having such a golden mountain. But that wasn't the crux of it. The key was that the place was chaotic, with plenty of unruly sects. In that case, his heroic spirit could have more room to play in reforming it. He was rather afraid that the place wasn't chaotic and that the sects were too proper. That noon, the weather was gloomy. Duan Yun and his companions were on the road, finding that there were already many people and caravans on the road. These people, carrying weapons and wearing various robes, were evidently martial artists. They walked along the road, talking loudly or quietly, all heading to Qinghe City, towards Golden Mountain. Thinking lunch was due, Duan Yun and his group planned to eat before continuing their journey. This was a tree-lined path with tall trees on both sides of the road. Even in this early summer season, it was still quite cool. In fact, they had felt cool for several days. Golden Mountain was a sprawling mountain range, and they were gradually entering the forest area. Apart from this main road, all around was the deep mountain forest. Qinghe Town was initially located in the mountains, and its development from a town to a city depended on these flocking martial artists. At this time, quite a few people were eating, with smoke rising from the sides of the road occasionally. People always need to eat. Duan Yun and his group were preparing a soup pot. The Morong brothers and Ning Qing had just picked some mushrooms and wood-ear fungus from the woods, not knowing if they were poisonous but intending to give it a try regardless. Poisonous or not, they had to try it. A hero is just that bold. Not far from them, two groups of people were also making meals. One group was roasting wild game, making the wild rabbit and wild boar meat sizzle, while the other was cooking braised pork. From appearances, both groups had a rough style. Half of the people roasting had shaved heads, with muscular bodies, while the braised pork cooks all wielded machetes. Because of a single sentence, the two groups clashed. The cause was two bald men from the upwind side went down to check out the braised pork. The swordsman raised an eyebrow and said, "What are you looking at?" The bald man glared and said, "Looking at you. I'm looking at the meat, not you. Damn you. Brothers. Fight." In the blink of an eye, both sides were fighting, blood and flesh flying. Watching this, Duan Yun became increasingly convinced that these martial artists were insane, being able to fight so fiercely over something like this. At that moment, his eyes suddenly lit up, because he saw that some of the blood spilled from the bald men was green. Iron Blood Sect? Seeing this scene, Duan Yun decided secretly, "I'll first reform your improper blooded sect." On the roadside, the Red Feather Blade Man and the Iron Blood Sect were locked in a bloody battle over a disagreement. The blades in the hands of the Blade Men swung wide and heavy, chopping without hesitation, but soon they found themselves at a disadvantage, because the Iron Blood Sect men seemed entirely unafraid of bleeding. Duan Yun remembered when the Iron Blood Sect clashed with the Xuanxiong gang, it was because they had too much blood and wanted to let some out, leading to the conflict. The Iron Blood Warriors, whether they had hair or not, had pointed heads that alone gave a fierce impression. They not only didn't fear bleeding, their blood was green, and they were very skilled at using it. One of the Iron Blood Warriors suddenly splattered the green blood from his shoulder, causing two blade men to fall to the ground, struggling blindly. The battle began quickly and ended just as fast. Soon, the Iron Blood Sect killed most of the blade men, capturing two fair-skinned ones as Star Fury, while the remaining blade men could only flee miserably. These Red Feather Blade men came from a sect called Big Head Blade, and originally intended to showcase their skills in Qinghe City. Last night, some ordinary and confident blade men joked about how they would play around if they captured the Valkyrie at the Golden Palace, but they were obliterated on their journey. One was even captured as Star Fury due to his pale skin. The road was already so chaotic. Who knew how disorderly Qinghe City had become? Duan Yun and his group stretched their necks to watch the commotion, finding that these insane fighters put on quite a thrilling show, featuring a sort of technique-free beauty. Just then, the Murong brothers suddenly appeared at the scene. The Iron Blood sect, calling themselves Iron Blood Warriors, with pointed heads, had just won a battle and were in a state of boiling blood. It was when they were at their fiercest. Yet this is precisely when the Murong brothers showed up. A few of the Iron Blood Warriors looked at their butts, eyes turning red. "What are you looking at?" An Iron Blood Warrior called out. The Murong brothers lifted the pot of Hongshao pork without an owner, raising an eyebrow, saying, "Looking at this pot of pork? What's it to you?" Being a hero means defying taboos, and they had been eyeing that pot of pork for a long time, because they knew Ning Qing loved Hongshao pork the most. When these words came out, the Iron Blood Warriors were momentarily stunned. Robbing Hongshao pork in front of them? Whose subordinate is this brave? Wait! Let him take it. This time, one of the leaders of the Iron Blood sect stopped his subordinates from causing more trouble. Though victorious, some of their men were injured. They had bled enough today, and judging by the man's behavior, he was either a master or a lunatic, not worth their bloodletting. Thus, the Murong brothers, hair unchanged, carried the pot of Hongshao pork back for the heroes. The people had died, and it would be a shame not to eat the Hongshao pork. In the eyes of the Iron Blood Warriors, this was just a small episode. Little did they know they were already being targeted by a group of demons. The leader of the demons, Old Demon Duan, quietly watched them, thinking their pointed heads were suitable for modification. At dusk, the sky was filled with red clouds. Everything around was cloaked in a layer of crimson, appearing very vivid. From a great distance, Duan Yun and his group saw a city. A very busy city. Previously along the way, the surroundings were desolate hills and wilds, but upon reaching here, there were many fields. At this time, farmers still numbly busied themselves by the roadside, while there were many still building houses covered in gray by the city side. Qinghe City had no walls. From here it appeared large but not attractive. It wasn't planned like Wangchun City, where the house and street styles were similar. It could be described as a hodgepodge. The houses came in a variety of appearances, a large mansion next to a thatched house. Some even just set up a grass hut, serving as a house. Here, houses had white walls and black tiles with the style of Jiangnan, while over there, the houses were yellow-walled boxes, as if arriving in the desert. For a moment, Duan Yun thought, if this city were a person, it must be crazy. Split more severely than Ziyu. According to the introduction by Fan Gao, it was because there were many small and large factions in the city. These factions came from all over, and many houses were newly built, bringing intense regional styles with them. For example, near the outskirts of the city, a mansion stood with a fully red wooden tower, said to be the base of Red Tower Mountain. Could be said that this was a big dye pot. And the darkness and cruelty of the martial world were demonstrated here more vividly. Ordinary people here were just livestock, and they estimated it seemed there were more martial world members than ordinary folks. Indeed, this was quite an abnormal ecosystem, yet Duan Yun's eyes lit up, because it meant many forces could be transformed, it meant many heroic transformations could be made. To a young hero like him, it was like a mouse falling into a rice jar, offering a vast space to play. As it got darker, with people at the city's edge still engrossed in building, Fan Gao introduced, "Nowadays, Qinghe City's busiest must belong to the Grey Eagle sect, as they have consecutively exterminated the Woodstone sect and Mixed Element Hand sect. Thus, only they build houses quickly and well in the city." At this moment, a disciple of the Grey Eagle sect suddenly demonstrated a hand technique, palm wind like a gray eagle soaring, efficiently and accurately casting the mortar. According to Fan Gao, the Grey Eagle sect charged a high price for building houses and casting mortar, so much so they were making big money. Duan Yun couldn't have expected, in his previous life, the low-value mud and brick workers could make great money here. Fan Gao led them along the riverside. The name of Qinghe City, Qinghe, comes from a river flowing through the city. However, this Qinghe doesn't look so clear anymore. They saw a few sword-wielding women washing chamber pots together there, with people below fetching water, seemingly to cook. The daily life here is overwhelmingly vivid. After Duan Yun and his companions learned that there was a usable well at the haunted house, they reluctantly relaxed. They finally arrived before dark. They couldn't deny that this place suited their preferences well. There was a pile of graves right in front of the house, a typical graveyard scenery house. Earlier, while walking by the riverside, even though it was getting dark, the surroundings were bustling, but upon arriving here, needing to pass through the wild, overgrown field, with half-revealed tombstones occasionally appearing, the surroundings suddenly became quiet and cold. Indeed, they were being watched from the moment they entered the city, seemingly by people planning to rob them. Shening and a few others were quite excited, thinking they would get a couple more pieces of furniture, but upon arriving here, the people were gone. By now, the sky had turned dark. In early summer, combined with being in the mountains and woods, it felt profoundly chilly and eerie. The entire house stood there in ramshackle condition, its ghostly aura almost rivaling Yuzhu Manor. Fan Gao shrank his neck, grumbling, "Don't underestimate this haunted and dilapidated house. It used to be rather coveted." They had understood that due to the allure of the Golden Palace, coupled with countless martial world forces converging here, the land and houses in Qinghe City were now as precious as gold. From the Grey Eagle sect making a fortune by building houses, it's evident. This was because after the White Sox sect withdrew, the city was swiftly occupied by 4 major forces, which reached a consensus that chaos in the city was under their control. They would still deal with blatant murder within the city. After all, ordinary people were limited in number. Killing them would reduce their numbers, affecting their sustenance for those seeking divine skills. Some wandering martial world folk also showed potential for servile labor, so they endeavored to recruit them. Thus, the properties and land were under their management, with profits divided among them. In conclusion, regardless of whether the Golden Palace holds any drama, the silver must be earned. It can be said, although Qinghe City hasn't seen large-scale conflict yet, beneath the surface, tensions are brewing. As more forces gather here, whether for divine skill or fame, or to recruit more servile labor, they secretly defy the 4 major forces. In Fan Gao's professional analysis, if the struggle here intensifies, this place might become unclaimed territory. With nearly 20 notable forces, a fight would certainly lead to rivers of blood and mass destruction. Yet Duan Yun believed otherwise, asserting that under his heroic spirit transformation, these sects would become compassionate and chivalrous. Once everyone offers a little love, Qinghe City might become a splendid earthly realm. After all, they've achieved this once before. Now Yusher Town and Small Spring Town are harmoniously idyllic like a paradise. However, the two situations differ. Yusher Town doesn't have as many forces and martial world folk, and the busiest demon-slaying conference and Green Dragon Night mainly attract spectators. Yet here, the martial crowd is larger and greedier. To instill heroic spirit in them, Mr. Duan Juxia must exert tremendous effort. Tomorrow he shall go to the Iron Blood sect for proper transformation. Duan Yun and his companions pushed the door open. Because the haunted house was relatively new, with deaths occurring here less than 2 months ago, it was considerably better than the previous Yuzhu Manor. Though run down, the inner courtyard houses were clearly repaired, livable with some tidying. Fan Gao saw this group of heroes determined to stay in this house, unable to resist a reminder. The previous owner of this house was named Deathblade, claiming that his blade drank the blood of thousands, filled with evil qi, allowing him to live here with 8 disciples. It's said that ghosts would cry and beg when seeing his blade. Yet they perished overnight, as if possessed, extracting their hearts, stringing them together. Reportedly, when their bodies were found, They were dying while roasting their own hearts over a fire. Actually, Duan Yun and his companions had heard of this incident on their way. Duan Yun roughly assumed it was a murder, intentionally staged to resemble haunting. Shining and others thought so too. As heroes, they never feared being killed. Even facing evil spirits, they must sincerely shout, "I want to be a hero," to pass. Yet being amidst this environment and hearing the description, they couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. Under the crooked tree in the backyard, ashes remained, marking where the group roasted their hearts. The hall they just passed through, although the shrine plaques on the stone platform were moved away, vaguely resembled a memorial hall. This kind of house that places ancestral tribute halls indoors indeed gives a lively nighttime feeling. Feng Linger first expressed, not wanting to clean the room tonight, wanting to sleep with Shadow Ying. Brother Morong chose to sleep with Ning Qing. After dating for so long, coupled with this environment, Brother Morong finally progressed, able to sleep under the same roof as Ning Qing. Ning Qing slept on the bed, while he slept under the bed, conveniently aiding his practice. Ziyu, however, showed boldness, saying she's unfazed with Sister accompanying her, even starting to look around, thinking the place might inspire her writing. As the house wasn't small and required Duan Yun's guidance, Fan Gao stayed as a managerial role. This first night's watch duty would likely fall to him. Honestly, Fan Gao felt quite pressured. He didn't believe he could exude heroic spirit like Duan Yun, unafraid of ghost gods. Spotting his stress, Brother Morong thoughtfully found him a companion, Panda Dabai. Together, they would handle the manager and watchman tasks. With the sudden company of a panda, Fan Gao felt slightly more secure. After a long journey, the group was a bit weary, washing up before sleeping. Fan Gao also felt tired, couldn't resist drifting off to sleep, leaving only Panda Dabai vigilantly observing the surroundings under his panda eyes. The night passed without incident. After sunrise, seeing Duan Yun and the others awaken, Panda Dabai sighed in relief and fell asleep. The night here felt eerie, but in daylight, despite the haunted atmosphere, the sun made it much better. The key was the presence of many women, chirping away, adding liveliness to the entire house. Duan Yun didn't stop, slightly disguised himself, and went out to gather information. His chance for heroic spirit transformation mustn't be delayed. In the early morning, Qinghe City was filled with people washing clothes, chamber pots, and fetching water for cooking. The city was veiled in cooking smoke, exuding a sense of hearth warmth. Suddenly, Duan Yun felt something amiss in the air. He glanced towards an alley, spotting over a dozen people lying in a room, puffing away. This group looked rather haggard but highly spirited. Duan Yun carefully examined the plaque, noting it read, Red Tower Mountain Smoke Factory, with a wooden sign beside promoting, sect guaranteed, every puff pure, try smoking. This was evidently Red Tower Mountain's industry. The sects here truly wouldn't let go of money or divine skills. It was apparent that living in the martial world here was stressful, hence many came to relax even early in the morning. Further ahead in a 4-story wooden building, 2 scantily clad dancers stood on the 3rd-floor eaves, dancing. No, they couldn't be called scantily clad. They at least wore thin socks, with 2 translucent silk scarves on their chests, marked with joyful union sex skill, clean and fun, buy one and get double. They danced merrily, while many biting the bullet entered, some murmuring, "What's wrong with relaxing? I definitely won't come next time." Duan Yun watched, unable to help grumbling, "What kind of people are they?" Not long ahead, he reached the Iron Blood sect's residence.